Chapter 672. Cruel? Ao Xieyun smiled sadly. Such a cruel opportunity is not something that everyone can bear. Only the big clans have such an experience. Therefore, the younger generation of the aristocratic clans usually matures earlier than the commoners. Chu Yang, the Ao clan has been developing for thousands of years. To be precise, it has been 1,150 years. On average, a generation is born every 18 years. That's more than 70 generations. In a clan like this, which grandson doesn't have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Which normal man doesn't have 7 or 8 women? If such a tragedy didn't happen, the population of the Ao clan would have already exceeded 1 million. What kind of colossus would that be? But now, other than the warriors with different surnames, there are only a few thousand people in the clan. Why? Most of the clansmen died because of the word ambition. It's easy to go through hardships together, but it's even more difficult to go through riches together. In times of hardship, the future is uncertain. Everyone is in danger. If they don't unite, they will be destroyed. Therefore, they were able to work together. It was normal for brothers to die and brothers to die. It was also normal for them to sing songs and weep. But once the struggle succeeds, everyone wants to eat the sweetest one when they enjoy the fruits of victory, because everyone has sacrificed. Everyone's sacrifice is no less than the others. Therefore, ambition and desire will breed at this moment. They will grow crazily and eventually become uncontrollable. Even if it's not for themselves, they will not be satisfied for their grandchildren. Which parent doesn't want to become a dragon? Which pair of parents will be willing to let the child that they have painstakingly raised and placed their hopes on become someone else's servant? Therefore, after every clan is successfully established, it must go through a bloodbath from generation to generation in order to slowly grow stronger. Every clan will first extend the butcher's knife to their own clansmen, their own brothers, and then to their enemies. Therefore, after an emperor ascends the throne, he usually doesn't expand the territory. Instead, he first eliminates the meritorious officials. Once the birds are killed, the bow is discarded. This is the inevitable development of all clans and countries. Ao Xieyun looked at Chu Yang steadily. This is the price that successful people have to pay. Moreover, it's a price that will be hidden forever, and it can't be avoided. Chu Yang pondered over Ao Xieyun's words and understood something. At such a crucial moment, Ao Xieyun would never be so bored as to discuss the development of his family and country with him. He must have his own intentions. Chu Yang had already guessed some of Ao Xieyun's good intentions. After going through such a purge, every family head would be physically and mentally exhausted. They would burn incense and pray that their children and descendants would not fight for power and profit, and that they would live in harmony. However, every family head would be disappointed in the end. As parents, every family head is deeply in love with their children. They can't bear to deal with their own children. Unless they went too far. Therefore, once the successor is determined, the parents will feel that they have treated their other children unfairly except for this successor. As for this successor, they will be resentful of Iron for not living up to their expectations and will become stricter and stricter. In this way, the other brothers are doted on, and some even become arrogant, while the successor is in danger. Therefore, the next successor of the family head, once their position is confirmed, they will start to deal with their own brothers. Because if he did not deal with them, he would not be able to survive. Therefore, the future troubles will begin when the second child of every clan head is born. The more women there are, the greater the damage. Therefore, the path of every clan head from the confirmation of his position to the successful ascension is bloody. Therefore, every clan head is also a ruthless and decisive person of his generation. Such elimination is like a great wave washing away the sand. It is enough to train the winner's heart to be as hard as stone. My father had more than 30 brothers, but now there are less than 10 people left. Then, where did my other uncles go? Ao Xieyun laughed, but it was a heart-wrenching laugh. Now, the few people left will also follow in the footsteps of those people. The person who is fighting now is an expert trusted by my uncle. Chu Yang nodded silently. I understand what you mean. You are reminding me of the conflicts that may arise between us brothers in the future, right? Ao Xieyun laughed self-deprecatingly. Yes. I am very convinced by you now. I am also very willing and very eager to be your brother. He paused and said sincerely, but this does not mean that when my son grows up in the future, he will also be convinced by your son. It is the same for them. This is not sowing discord, nor is it alarmist talk. It is the cruelest reality. Everyone wants to be the boss, and no one wants to just be the underling, especially our children, who have our excellent genes, are even more impossible for them to be ordinary people. Naturally, they will not be willing to be under others. My clan is like this, and so are the other clans. Dong Wushang and Dong Wulei's brotherhood is very deep. But if Dong Wushang had not followed you, the two brothers would have had a life-and-death battle sooner or later. It is the same for Luo Kedi and Luo Kawu. Mo Tianji and Mo Tianyun are in a life-and-death battle. Isn't it also because of this? Ao Xieyun looked at the two people in the battle circle and said indifferently, I have been wandering the martial world during this period of time, and I am also tired of the power struggle between clans. But during this period of time, I have been hunted down repeatedly, and it made me understand this principle. And the heavenly army that you have established is not such a clan. So today, I will say this to you. Because of you, it can be avoided. After all, the brothers of the heavenly army have different surnames. Chu Yang thought for a long time and said, I am willing to listen to your wise opinion. Ao Xieyun said, I dare not say that I am wise, but as the leader of the heavenly army, only you can start to formulate a way to avoid this kind of future trouble. Only then can the heavenly army become truly strong and powerful, and even become an overlord. In other words, us brothers are together to create an overlord, but this kind of overlord has nothing to do with our descendants. We are brothers, not subordinates. But our descendants can't continue on our path. If they want to build this kind of relationship between us, then they have to fight for it themselves. Seniority is also something that we have to fight for. Just like how you are the youngest now, but you can be the boss. Everyone trusts you. This is the reason. In the long run, there may be fewer people, but as long as there are people left, they will be like us. Chu Yang thought silently. After a long time, he said, this method is feasible, but it is not perfect. Besides, it is still too early to think about the future. After I have discussed with Mo Tianji and the others, I will come up with a perfect plan and discuss it with the brothers. Ao Xieyun smiled and said, it is better to do it sooner rather than later. The sooner the better. And a group like ours is the easiest to solve. And you and Mo Tianji are the two people that I am most at ease with. So I am telling you today. Chu Yang nodded deeply. Ao Xieyun smiled again. In fact, using my own clan as an example, this kind of feeling is really indescribable. Fortunately, although there are some words that don't convey the meaning, I have finally finished speaking. However, the purpose isn't this, but something else. His eyes were deeply focused on Dong Wushang, who was in the middle of the battle. He said, this encounter, although there will be a battle, but there will definitely not be any danger. You can rest assured on this point. Chu Yang looked at him with some surprise and said, don't tell me. This is what you said just now, another purge of the clan. Purge? Yes. And this time, the purge belongs to me. Ao Xieyun's eyebrows and the corners of his eyes had never stopped from the beginning. I also thought of this after seeing them again. I didn't expect that you would have already guessed it the moment I opened my mouth. The people of Ao clan came out with the intention of avenging me. Ao Xieyun said, so, they attacked the Black Devil, Tian clan, and the others first. But, they suddenly changed their direction, and attacked us instead. This point was originally very puzzling. I have finally figured it out now. The news that I was still alive must have spread out at that time. Since I am still alive, there is enough reason for those people of the Black Devil to use them. Moreover, the clan must have made a decision to force them to take the risk out of desperation. It was a life and death struggle. Perhaps, the clan had decided on this purge plan from that time. Ao Xieyun said in disappointment and frustration, this is also the tradition of our clan. We will force those with ambitions to jump out of their own accord. Then, we will purge them in the name of righteousness. Chu Yang smiled mischievously. I can imagine. So, you don't take it to heart. Ao Xieyun hesitated for a long time. Then, he said, I won't take it to heart. And, the Xie clan won't take it to heart either. Chu Yang calmly said, your Ao clan must give an explanation after this matter is over. Otherwise, this matter will become a knot in your heart. Ao Xieyun was silent. He exposed an ashamed look on his face. No matter what, the Ao clan had used Chu Yang and the others to carry out this purge. The Xie clan had almost been exterminated because of this matter. So, how could this be settled with just a few words? On one side, Mo Tianji was still weary in the carriage. He had been quietly listening to the conversation between the two. He carefully looked at Ao Xieyun's back as he heard this. His eyes exposed an expression of deep contemplation. He thought, this Ao Xieyun is very far-sighted. But, this matter, how should we deal with it? Is there any way to get the best of both worlds? Ao Xieyun suggested to Chu Yang. However, Chu Yang only thought for a while. Because he felt that this matter was too far away. Moreover, he couldn't be impatient. It would be better to plan slowly. However, Mo Tianji had always been a person who planned ahead. So, he began to rack his brains. He became worried for his future generations. Therefore, he began to plan. The battle between the two men had reached a white-hot state. Dong Wushong was in high spirits. He repeatedly shouted. Every saber attack was accompanied by a loud shout. The saber was like lightning, and the sound was like thunder. His hair and beard fluttered in the wind. He only attacked without defending. His tall and majestic body was pressing forward step by step like a deity. His opponent's cultivation was clearly much stronger than Dong Wushong's, but under his opponent's peerless aura, he was slowly losing ground. Apart from parrying, he couldn't even find a chance to retreat out of the encirclement. He was barely holding on. His entire body was dripping with sweat. It seemed as if he had just been fished out of the water. Stop! A loud shout was heard from the opposing team. Then, a person's silhouette flew out. Chu Yang sneered. He didn't hesitate. His sword flashed, and turned into a rainbow. What harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? Chapter 673. Dong Wushong shouted loudly. He jumped up, held his saber with both hands, and slashed down like a thunderbolt. That man retreated in panic. However, this saber was extremely overbearing. It shrouded his way forward and backward. There was no other way except to meet it head-on. He roared loudly, and raised his sword to meet it. At the same time, he felt endless regret in his heart. My cultivation is much stronger than this guy's. But, I didn't expect that the opponent's saber and saber technique would be so abnormal. I've fallen into such a desperate situation in this head-on clash. I could have exhausted this saber emperor to death by relying on my decades of experience and cultivation if I had fought with him. But, I've relied on my higher cultivation, and the strength of my divine sword. And, I've chosen to meet the opponent's strongest point head-on. This is truly a self-inflicted evil. The saber and the sword fiercely clashed under the watchful eyes of everyone. A loud bang resounded. That long sword shattered into tiny fragments on the ground with a bang, as if a piece of glass had been shattered. That man screamed as he was thrown out by a huge force. Blood crazily gushed out of his 7 orifices. His eyes were still filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Everyone who saw this scene, including that expert of Ao clan who was rushing over, had a look of disbelief on their faces. Others might not know. But, how could the people of Ao clan not know? The man who had come out to fight was a trusted aide of Ao clan's elder Ao Tienkong. He was also his sworn brother. His name was Wu Feng. That sword was Wu Feng's heirloom. It was called Mysterious Steel Flying Snow Sword. It was forged from mysterious steel refined from star iron. It was incomparably sharp, and invincible. Its firmness was second to none among all the weapons of Ao clan. It was Wu Feng's biggest trump card. Wu Feng's strength wasn't considered the highest because of this sword. But, he had always been the object of envy. However, this was an heirloom. So, others could only be envious. Wu Feng had come out to fight this time because he wanted to take revenge for Ao Tian Kong's son, Ao Fengyun. Who would have thought that such a divine weapon would be violently chopped into pieces by Dong Wushong in this showdown? This was beyond everyone's expectation. Dong Wushong let out a long and loud shout. His mighty body soared high in the wind. He took 3 big strides in the air, and shouted, "Saber falls on the heartless heaven." A black lightning bolt. It fiercely chopped down. Wu Feng had already lost his soul, his internal organs were damaged, and he didn't even have the strength to move. Facing this domineering blade, Wu Feng already had no room to dodge, and could only wait for death. The saber wind was biting cold, and Wu Feng's eyes were filled with despair. That person flying over was already 30 feet away, but Dong Wushang didn't even bat an eyelid. It was still the same saber descends merciless heaven, without any hesitation. Since this saber was merciless. In that case, Dong Wushang didn't care about him at all. He only wanted to kill the enemy. Seeing that it was too late, the man couldn't help but yell anxiously, "Junior, how dare you!" His long sword flashed. It was aimed at Dong Wushang's throat. His sword was like a thunderbolt. Dong Wushang would have died under this sword if he hadn't withdrawn his saber. This was the best rescue plan in this situation. Right at this moment, someone said coldly, "Old thief, how dare you!" An unimaginably swift swordlight carried the might of the Milky Way, and fiercely struck that swordlight that was thrusting towards Dong Wushang. With a snap sound, that sword broke in the air. Then, the entire sword turned into pieces that looked like rotten wood. They floated down to the ground. They fell to the ground, and issued a soft sound like that of a piece of wood. That person's reaction was extremely fast, and he immediately struck out with his palm. Chu Yang had already expected this. Even before he struck out with his palm, the two didn't even have time to pass each other, and his left hand fiercely swung out. With a bang, both of them somersaulted 3 times, and landed on the ground. Chu Yang's hand flickered with a cold light, and his long sword made a clanging sound as if it was celebrating the victory. The opposite person looked like a man in his 40s, and was angrily looking at Chu Yang and Dong Wushang. He gritted his teeth with hatred, and asked word by word, "King of Hell Chu?" Chu Yang smiled warmly, "Master Ao? Your eyesight is really good." This man was the master of Ao clan, the younger brother of Ao Tianxing, Ao Tian Kong. He was also the father of Ao clan's young master, Ao Fengyun. On the other side, Wu Feng didn't even have time to issue a scream under Dong Wushang's saber. He had already turned into a pile of minced meat. Dong Wushang's last saber move, Saber Fall's Ruthless Heaven, had used a blunt and thick saber's back. The back of his black saber was almost a foot thick. So, Dong Wushang's strength had been more than 1,000 kilograms when he had smashed down. Wu Feng had turned into a pile of minced meat on the spot, and hadn't had a single complete bone. Dong Wushang gasped for breath, and stood upright with the support of his saber. He looked at his own saber, and revealed a look of heartache. Sawtoothed nicks had also appeared on the black saber's edge. This was the first time that Dong Wushang's black saber had been damaged since he had obtained it. This clearly showed how hard and sharp his opponent's sword was. "Wushang, go back and rest. Leave this to me," Chu Yang insipidly said. Dong Wushang complied. "You want to leave without leaving your life behind?" Ao Tian Kong issued a mournful laugh. "King of Hell Chu, you know that it's me. So, when has my Ao clan's people been killed in vain? Dong Wushang must pay for my sworn brother's life." Dong Wushang snorted. He had already taken a step forward, but he stopped. He then coldly looked at Ao Tian Kong. He was about to speak, but Chu Yang waved his hand to stop him. Then, he said without turning his head, "Go back. We've killed many people of Ao clan. Ao Fengyun, won't we turn him into minced meat? Pay with his life. You wish." Dong Wushang had been angered by Ao Tian Kong. But, he almost laughed out loud when he heard Chu Yang's words. Ao Fengyun was Ao Tian Kong's son. Dong Wushang naturally knew this. Chu Yang had spoken these words with an extremely malicious intention. It was tantamount to sprinkling a handful of salt on Ao Tian Kong's bleeding wound. Dong Wushang laughed out loud. He then walked back while dragging his saber. He was exhausted at the moment. It was extremely rare for him to be able to walk back while holding his saber. One must know that this saber weighed 570 kilograms. Chu Yang's words had touched Ao Tian Kong's sore spot. He couldn't help but look up to the sky and issued a fierce shout. His eyes turned blood red in an instant. King of Hell Chu, a debt of blood must be paid in blood. You killed my son. And you killed my sworn brother today. Don't even think that you'll leave this place alive today. I will flay your skin, break your bones, and grind your bones to ashes. Chu Yang hypocritically said, Master Ao, please calm down. Calm your anger for the time being. How big of a matter is it? Why do you have to put on such an irreconcilable appearance? After all, it's only your son. Not your father. Besides, perhaps this matter was a misunderstanding. We only saw a good-for-nothing son of a bitch at that time. So, we killed him. How could we have thought that this son of a bitch turned out to be Master Ao's son? Ignorance isn't a crime. So, let's drop this matter at this point. Anyway, Master Ao is still in the prime of his life. Go back tonight and work hard. Then, you can sow the seeds again. Ao Tian Kong's entire body started to tremble. Your son was killed. And, you still have the face to say to me, how big of a matter is it? Moreover, every sentence that followed was extremely humiliating. Ao Tian Kong's entire body trembled. His lips quivered. In fact, he would have fainted on the spot if it weren't for his excellent temperament. King of Hell Chu, you're good. Ao Tian Kong was extremely angry. He pointed his trembling finger at Chu Yang. He was so angry that he couldn't even speak a complete sentence. I'm good. Chu Yang looked at himself in bewilderment. Master Ao is right. Of course, I'm good. Your son is dead. And, I'm still alive. So, how can I not be good? Ao Tian Kong roared. He didn't speak again. Instead, he pulled out his sword and attacked. Chu Yang laughed loudly. His sword flashed high up in the air. Then, the two men rolled and fought together. Behind him, Jiyu Du Xing and the others were watching with rapt attention. Jiyu Du Xing's right hand was already on the hilt of his sword. Ji Mo, Luo Ku Di, and Rui Biu Tong looked at each other in dismay. They sighed in admiration in their hearts. Big brother is big brother. He is so proficient and smooth in using the skill of spurting blood out of anger. Compared to the two of us, his level of cursing is much higher. The two of us must learn from him. A dignified-looking man in a brocade robe was straddling his horse. His sharp eyes were also watching this battle. Several people beside him were looking at this side with indignant looks on their faces. What do you think? This man insipidly asked. They've gone too far. This King of Hell Chu and his brother have gone too far. Not only are they unreasonable, but they are also ruthless. We must eliminate these evilders. A man beside him clenched his teeth. He couldn't restrain the look of anger on his face. This man was an elder of Ao clan Ao Tian Feng. Ao Qing Yun, who had died at the hands of Jiyu Du Xing, was his son. The previous man was the clan lord of Ao clan Ao Tian Xing. He meaningfully grunted, and looked at his younger brother. Big brother, we must take revenge for this. We can't afford to lose the face of our Ao clan. Ao Tian Feng clenched his teeth. His eyes were brimming with tears. Big brother, your nephews were killed by them. So, how can we not take revenge for this? Ao Tian Xing's eyes slightly flashed. He sighed, and slowly said, You're right. How can we not take revenge for this? It seemed as if he was echoing Ao Tian Feng's words. However, his words were spoken in a flat and indifferent manner. There wasn't any fluctuation in his tone. His face was expressionless, and his voice sounded as if he was talking about an unfamiliar matter. However, it seemed as if he had some other intention. Ao Tian Feng heard these words, and felt a chill in his heart for no reason. His heart couldn't help but violently throb twice. His complexion couldn't help but change. An inexplicable fear rose in his heart like a tide. The anger in his heart was suppressed by fear for a moment. Don't move. Anyone who dares to act rashly will be killed. Ao Tianxing resolutely ordered. His phoenix-like eyes narrowed even more as he looked at the battle between Chu Yang and Ao Tiankong. Cold lights flickered in his narrowed eyes. Everyone around agreed at the same time. Ao Tianfeng looked at his elder brother in disbelief. He only felt a chill in his heart. A chill rose from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. Chapter 674. Ao Tianfeng could clearly hear that Ao Tianxing wasn't thinking about his son Ao Qingyun when he said this. He was thinking about his son Ao Xieyun. How could he not avenge his son? Who was Ao Xieyun's enemy? Who else could it be apart from Ao Qingyun and the other dead men? Where did these men get the guts to do that? Where did they get such strong strength? Wasn't it their fathers who added fuel to the fire? Who would Ao Tianxing look for to take revenge? Ao Tianfeng's blood turned ice cold. He looked at Ao Tianxing's indifferent but cold face. He faintly felt his elder brother's ruthlessness and callousness. He then looked at Ao Tiankong, who was fighting fiercely. He smiled bitterly in his heart. Elder brother, we want to avenge our son. But it's not as good as elder brothers. It seems that our son won't die in vain this time. I'm afraid that we won't be spared either. Ao Tiankong and Chu Yang had already fought to their heart's content in the arena. Ao Tiankong's sword was chopped into pieces by Chu Yang's attack. But he immediately drew out another sword. This sword didn't fight for long, and was chopped into pieces by Chu Yang. Ao Tiankong had drawn out another sword. But this sword didn't fight for long, and was chopped into pieces by Chu Yang. 7 swords had been destroyed by Chu Yang's sword in a short while. But Ao Tiankong still had another sword in his hand. Chu Yang was extremely surprised. He couldn't see where this master Ao was hiding so many swords on his body. However, the more he fought, the braver he became. The tribulation sword hadn't displayed its ability to swallow anything since it had swallowed Elder Yu's white crystal ore. It seemed as if it was recuperating. But the sword spirit had activated the devouring power of the tribulation sword this time. In fact, he even regretted it. How could the sword spirit have controlled the devouring power of the tribulation sword if he had known that Chu Yang's spirit would be seriously injured? It turned out that the devouring power of the tribulation sword wasn't infinite. It had stages. It had to completely digest the devouring power after it had reached a certain stage. Then, it could start to devour again. And Elder Yu's white crystal ore was enormous. The tribulation sword had almost reached its saturation point after devouring it once. It could have continued to devour it. But the tribulation sword would have been triggered because it hadn't been digested in time. At that time, he would use the heaven's divine lightning to temper the sword. Although the calamity sword wouldn't be destroyed, that feeling would make the sword spirit live a life worse than death for several years. Now, the sword spirit couldn't care less about the pain he might suffer for several years. He quickly let go of the calamity sword. Swallow it. Devour. The more it devoured, the better. The more Ao Tiankong fought, the more sullen he felt. His cultivation was far higher than Eunuch Chu's. However, his opponent's sword was simply too sharp. Even though my sword isn't some precious item, it's definitely not an ordinary item to be worn on my body. Who would have thought that my sword would turn into scrap metal that has been rotten for tens of thousands of years the moment it came into contact with his opponent's sword? Ao Tiankong was known as the Emperor of 10,000 Swords. He had always been famous for his swords. Moreover, he had an endless supply of swords on his body. His best move was to send his sword flying when the enemy struck him. Then, he would take advantage of the enemy's delight, and pull out another sword, and launch a surprise attack. Sometimes, he could even wield 5 swords simultaneously and attack at the same time. This was where the name of the throne of 10,000 swords came from. However, this Emperor of 10,000 Swords was like a group of mice meeting an old cat when he encountered Chu Yang's calamity sword. The enemy not only defeated them one by one, but also ate them one by one. The last sword of this Emperor of 10,000 Swords also turned into scrap metal with a clang sound. He opened his hands wide and retreated in panic. Minister Chu let out a long and loud shout. He was in high spirits. His swords were like raindrops. They displayed sword power and attacked ferociously. This was the momentum of beating a drowning dog. Ao Tien Kong dodged again and again. He was battered and exhausted. He hastily turned his head to look, and saw that the people on his side were biding their time. Big brother Ao Tien Xing's gaze shot over like cold lightning. It was cold and without any expression. Ao Tien Kong felt cold. He had almost been hit by a sword. He suddenly realized that Big Brother had made up his mind to purge his people this time. He suddenly regretted it. It would have been nice to live peacefully like this. Why do I have to fight for something? Chu Yang hadn't really killed them. He had been observing the reaction of the Ao clan's people. Ao Xieyun's guess would have been proven wrong if the other side had dispatched reinforcements. Then, he would have had to find a suitable way to deal with the current situation. He was finally relieved now. He smiled coldly, and his murderous aura overflowed. Suddenly, thousands of bright sword lights appeared in the sky. They blotted out the sky and covered the earth. One ray of cold light pierces 10,000 fathoms. Ao Tien Kong shouted loudly. He had 3 sword wounds on his body. He was a 5th-grade emperor-level expert. But he had been living like a prince these past few years. So, he hadn't even scratched the skin of his fingers, let alone fighting. He suddenly got injured. These injuries were almost insignificant for the people of Jianghu. But they were painful to the core when they were placed on his body. He rolled out in a difficult situation. Blood was unceasingly flowing out of his body. His voice was trembling as he shouted loudly, "Eunuch King Chu, you bully unarmed people. What kind of hero are you?" The people of Ao clan blushed as soon as these words came out. This is so shameful. Let alone the young master of Ao clan, even an ordinary person of Jianghu wouldn't say such words. These words were almost equivalent to begging for mercy. "I'm not a hero." Chu Yang restrained his laughter and said, "I like to bully the weak the most. I like to bully unarmed people with divine weapons." Ao Tien Kong rolled and crawled. His hair was disheveled. "This isn't fair. This isn't fair. Big brother. Big brother, help me." He had started to shout for help. He was usually a scheming person. He was ambitious and skillful. However, he had been living like a prince for more than 20 years. So, he had lost the hot-bloodedness of a person of Jianghu. He had become timid. Now, boundless murderous aura was approaching his body. The feeling of death had shrouded him. His mind was in chaos. He had become worse than an ordinary person. Anyone, any powerhouse, as long as you could break their psychological bottom line, no matter what level they were at, they would immediately collapse. Ao Tien Xing's complexion was so dark that it was frightening. There was a look of shame and anger in his eyes. Chu Yang burst into loud laughter. What harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? So, he attacked again. Ao Tien Kong had already started to howl. He desperately rolled and crawled backwards to escape. A sword light soared high into the sky. Blood splashed everywhere. Ao Tien Xing's body was nailed to the ground. The Calamity sword issued a burst of navel red brilliance. Ao Tien Xing's body slowly withered like firewood. Then, his body dissipated like a skeleton that had decayed for thousands of years. It turned into a pile of deathly white bones. Chu Yang pulled out his sword with a clang sound. He deeply looked at the opposite side. Then, he turned his head and left. There was no movement from the opposite side. It was naturally impossible for there to be any movement from Chu Yang's side. Both sides had a tacit understanding. This battle was just a pretext. Or, it could be said that they had thrown a brick to attract jade. The real dialogue would begin from here. In other words, they would begin to enter the established plan of the world-defying clan. King of Hell Chu, you killed my younger brother. Are you going to leave just like that? Ao Tien Xing took 2 steps forward on his horse, and asked in a heavy voice. Sure enough, it has come. It's just as expected. Chu Yang and Mo Tianji exposed a mysterious smile at the corners of their mouths. It was a ridicule that had seen through everything. On the other side, Ao Xieyun had a bitter smile on his face. Chu Yang stopped, and sneered, presumably, Clan Lord Ao can see that I would have been lying on the ground if I'd been defeated. It's very normal for the Jianghu to fight to the death. He paused for a moment, and then said, moreover, your Ao clan attacked us first. Do we deserve to be humiliated again and again? Is there such a thing? Ao Tianxing frowned. Nonsense. Why would our clan attack you continuously? He said this in a very surprised and furious manner. Acting naturally had to be done to the fullest. An old fox and a little fox. They had never met each other before. But when they met for the first time and were still hostile to each other, they actually developed such a tacit understanding and close cooperation. Chu Yang snorted and said, you didn't expect this, did you? They didn't just attack us. They also attacked the Xie clan under the banner of the Ao clan. They almost exterminated the Xie clan. This is intolerable. Ao Tianxing gnashed his teeth. Who is so lawless? Don't they know that the Xie clan is the most solid ally of my Ao clan? These words had set the tone for the whole thing. Lawless? Chu Yang sneered. You don't know a lot about lawless matters. Do you still remember your son, Ao Xieyun? Little puppy Ao. Of course I remember. However, little puppy has gone missing. His whereabouts are still unknown. Sigh. Ao Tianxing sighed. Everyone knew that he was pretending to be sad, but judging from his expression and his voice, it seemed to be real. But the great genius of the Ao clan didn't hesitate to kill Ao Xieyun. That's why Ao Xieyun went missing. You're his father. But, you were kept in the dark. Chu Yang said angrily. Who dares to kill my son? Ao Tianxing was furious. My son is the future successor of the Ao clan. That's why I killed your son. Chu Yang continued. Impudent. Ao Tianxing roared. The two of them seemed to be singing a preposterous two-man play. Everyone who heard them felt that it was funny. However, the topic of their conversation became more and more dangerous. Big brother, you. Ao Tianfeng hastily shouted. His face had turned ashen. Shut up. This matter hasn't been clarified. Whoever dares to speak will be cut into pieces. Ao Tianxing roared. Ao Tianfeng smiled bitterly. It was over. How do you know about this matter? Ao Tianxing asked. He didn't seem to believe Chu Yang. How do I know? Because I was the one who saved your son. Chu Yang laughed. You saved my son? Ao Tianxing was obviously very excited. He was almost jumping for joy as he shouted, where is he? Ao, where are you? Ao Xieyun walked out with a black face under everyone's strange and mocking gazes. He took off his mask and looked at his father with resentment. I know that you're acting. I know that you're cleaning. But, is it necessary for you to call out the name little puppy Ao in broad daylight? Chapter 675. I'll take the stage when you're done. Ao Tianxing and Chu Yang were almost done with their act. Naturally, it was Ao Xieyun's turn to perform. Under Ao Xieyun's accusation, the truth of what the great genius of Ao clan had done during this period of time was finally revealed. Ao Tianxing was so angry that his chest heaved up and down. He actually spat out a mouthful of blood. He shouted angrily, "Take down these bastards." The purge of Ao clan had finally found a reason. In other words, the purge that Ao Tianxing had single-handedly planned had finally come to an end. 100 people from Ao clan had come out this time. Almost all of them were emperor-level experts. However, there were no more than 50 of them who belonged to Ao Tianfeng and the others. Moreover, they were all important figures in their own groups. To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. As long as these people were all captured, the rest of the people in the clan wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. They would be captured almost effortlessly. These people also knew that the situation was hopeless. They didn't resist. Only Ao Tianfeng and a few others were knocked unconscious on the spot after they cursed. Xieyun, in your opinion, how should we deal with these people? Ao Tianxing narrowed his eyes and looked at his son. He sighed and said, "They are all your uncles." Ao Xieyun muttered to himself. It was obvious that his father was testing his temperament. Logically speaking, the purge of Ao clan this time should be completed by his own hands. However, His father had done all of this. For his future growth, there was no doubt that it would be one less cruel tempering. Ao Xie hesitated for a long time. The expression in his eyes changed. Ao Tianxing stared at his son's eyes and waited for his answer. Chu Yang coughed. Ao Xie finally gathered his courage and said, "Father, if the ones who were captured today were you and me, how would these uncles treat us?" Ao Tianxing's eyes lit up. Good. He was gratified. However, with some heartache and contradiction, he said, "Those who achieve great things can't be soft-hearted. Although it's cruel to kill brothers, it can save your life. If you don't kill him, he will kill you. Since he has already started to deal with you, you don't have to have any pity. Because he is no longer your relative. Bloodline is not an excuse to bind a person." Ao Tianxing slowly taught, "After going through such a tragedy, your heart will become much firmer." However, this also had its drawbacks. After all, the people who died at your hands were your blood relatives. Therefore, it was inevitable that there would be inner demons in the heart. Therefore, a successful person would never be able to reach the peak of cultivation. This was because there would be too many unnecessary killings and conspiracies in the process of ascending to the top. When all of these happened together, their conscience would be disturbed, and they would become the biggest obstacle. You have to pay special attention to this. Therefore, our Ao clan has been looking for excuses. And we have been playing tricks. However, we have never acted as long as they don't deal with us. It's not that we don't know how to take precautions, and it's not that we don't know the principle of striking first to gain the upper hand. It is that we have to create a reason for ourselves. Even if he was deceiving himself, there was always a reason. At the very least, I can comfort myself. Ao Tianxing sighed deeply. Because no matter who wins or loses, they will always be the ones to deal with us first. When you think about it this way, your heart will be at peace. Even if you feel guilty, it won't be too serious. Therefore, this time, I specially sent them out. It is to give them a reason to act, and also to give us a reason to purge. Ao Xie stammered, "Could it be? Father, you are not afraid that you will be killed by them?" "No. You won't die so easily," Ao Tianxing said indifferently. "However, if you really die like this, it can only mean that you are destined to die. Such a purge plan will be cancelled, and the power of the next generation will be handed over." Ao Xie was stunned. He really did not know that his father had such confidence in him. "Because you are different from us." Ao Tianxing lowered his voice. "You are the first person in our Ao clan who does not have to worry about life and death in more than 1,000 years. Ao Xie suddenly felt dizzy. The first person in 1,000 years who does not have to worry about life and death. What does this mean? Do you know why our Ao clan is surnamed Ao? Ao Tianxing said seriously. Ao Xie's mouth twitched. He wanted to laugh, but in the end, he did not. Why is it surnamed Ao? Does it even need to be said? Our ancestors are surnamed Ao. Can we be surnamed Zhong? But looking at his father's extremely serious expression, he did not dare to laugh. He could only ask, "Then, why are we surnamed Ao?" After saying this, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. Our Ao clan, until 1,000 years ago, found a place to settle down here and built a home. At that time, we were just a small clan. Ao Tianxing looked at Chu Yang. Ao Xie suddenly realized and hurriedly said, "Brother Chu is not an outsider. Father, you don't have to worry." Ao Tianxing nodded and took a deep look at Chu Yang. Chu Yang smiled faintly and said, "Since Brother Ao has something to say, I might as well leave you for a while." As he said this, he stood up. "Wait." Ao Tianxing reached out and stopped him. "The future is the world of you young people. Minister Chu will stay here as a witness. Who knows what will happen in the future?" Chu Yang touched his nose and could only smile bitterly and stop again. He thought, "You were the one who was afraid of me just now. Now, you are the one who is trying to persuade me to stay. Is there something wrong with this Ao clan master?" After our ancestors built the home, they accidentally discovered that there was a huge dragon vein in the depths of our Ao clan's manor. Ao Tianxing lowered his voice. Chu Yang was dumbfounded. In fact, his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. It was not because of the dragon vein. It was because he remembered the lie that Tan Tan had told Meng Luo when he was pretending to be Yigong. Ao clan had a huge dragon vein. At that time, Tan Tan was absolutely not aware of it. He was just speaking without thinking. Who would have thought that the words that he had boasted so much back then would actually come out of the mouth of the Ao clan's clan head so clearly? In an instant, Chu Yang was almost dizzy. God! You are not playing with me, are you? Ao Xieyun was obviously shocked too. Dragon vein? Quiet. Ao Tianxing said seriously. Ao Xieyun opened his mouth and did not speak. And in this dragon vein, there is a huge treasure. Ao Tianxing sighed. Unfortunately, it cannot be taken out. Chu Yang chuckled. His eyeballs fell to the ground. At this moment, he only had one thought: capture Tan Tan and torture him to see if this guy is a prophet. Because Tan Tan had also said that there was a huge treasure in the dragon vein of Ao clan. It could only be opened by the most direct descendant of Ao clan. Now, it coincided again. Huge treasure? Can't be taken out. Ao Xieyun also became nervous. Then, how can it be opened? Ao Tianxing sighed disappointedly and said, it can only be opened by the pure bloodline of our clan. Chu Yang was flabbergasted. He sat on the ground. Oh my God! Amazing! Minister Chu, what's wrong with you? Ao Tianxing was shocked. No, nothing. Chu Yang rubbed his buttocks and stood up. His other hand was rubbing his temples. Oh God, let me break down. Tan Tan had casually spouted nonsense at that time. But he hadn't expected that there would be a liar here after such a long time. Ao Xieyun was immediately discouraged. Since you can't open it, then I definitely can't open it. Then, can't I only look on? Not really. We can't open it, but you can, Ao Tianxing said seriously. Chu Yang started to feel dizzy again. Tan Tan also said that Ao Xieyun could open it. I can open it. Ao Xieyun was obviously dizzy too. He was his father's bloodline, but his father himself could not open it. How could he say that his bloodline could open it? Yes. For 1,000 years, you are the only one in Ao clan who can open the treasure, Ao Tianxing said seriously. Chu Yang and Ao Xieyun fainted at the same time. However, the reason why they fainted was completely different. Later, I accidentally obtained a secret manual. Only then did I know that the reason why Ao clan chose this place was because of the cycle of heaven's will, Ao Tianxing said mysteriously. Cycle of heaven's will? Ao Xieyun was dumbfounded. That's right. Because after the secret manual's examination, we discovered that Ao clan actually has the bloodline of the ancient dragon race, Ao Tianxing said in a sonorous voice. This also explains why our surname is Ao. Because the collective surname of the dragon race is Ao. Ao Xieyun gasped for breath. His eyes were as wide as bells, full of disbelief. And the treasures sealed within this dragon vein are the treasures of the dragon clan, Ao Tianxing said word by word. Moreover, it contains the life savings of a tribulation sword master from countless years ago. Treasure. The life savings of the tribulation sword master. Chu Yang also started to gasp for breath. He was almost suffocating. His eyes were as wide as bells, full of disbelief. At that time, Tan Tan also said that there was a treasure inside, and it was the treasure of the tribulation sword master. Chu Yang groaned. God, strike me with lightning. I really can't believe that what I saw and heard today is true, especially when compared to that day. It's even more unbearable. His heart is about to explode. Ao Xieyun didn't experience that, so he was much calmer. But that doesn't mean that I can. You can, Ao Tianxing said with certainty. After so many years, the dragon bloodline of our ancestors hasn't recovered, but you are completely different from us. Ao Tianxing's eyes were full of pride. Do you know what's wrong with your left foot? Wrong? Ao Xieyun's body suddenly shook. Father, you mean, because from the day you were born, there was a piece of. Ao Tianxing's gaze was like lightning, but it was filled with passion. Dragon Scale. Chapter 676. Dragon Race. Ao Xieyun's eyes widened as he exclaimed. He was so shocked that he couldn't speak. He thought of the mottled round thing on his foot. Sometimes, he even wanted to dig it out, but he couldn't. So, it was a dragon scale? Dragon scale? Dragon race? So, he wasn't human? Ao Xieyun's mind was in a mess. He was dizzy and almost couldn't hold on. Even with his strong willpower, he couldn't accept it at this moment. Just like us, if someone suddenly told us one day, "Child, you are actually Ultraman," our reaction would be to blurt out, "Bullshit." Ao Xieyun didn't curse out loud. He was already very filial. After all, the one who said this was his father. Compared to the dragon race, Minister Chu wasn't in the mood to be shocked. All of his surprise had been spat out just now. Now that the dragon race had suddenly appeared, Minister Chu was already very indifferent. Dragon race? What is it? Does it have the ability to predict? And it's nonsense, a prophecy that's like farting. Does it? Tan Tan. It's the way of the king. Ao Tianxing sighed. However, both Chu Yang and Ao Xieyun could hear that Ao Tianxing's sigh was really inexplicable. It contained too much excitement. People would sigh when they were excited and happy to the extreme. And, when you were just born, not only did you have golden scales under your feet, but you also had a 3-star birthmark on your head. Ao Tianxing looked at his son and said slowly, "Do you know what this represents?" "What does it represent?" Ao Xieyun tried hard to make his mind work and think about this matter. But he realized that no matter how hard he tried, his mind was in a mess. He couldn't think of any clues. The third-generation ancestor of the Ao clan was amazing. It was also him who discovered the dragon vein. It was him who left a prophecy at the last moment of his life: 3 stars above my head, golden scales under my feet. No matter how many trials and tribulations I go through, I won't sink to the bottom. In the vicissitudes of the universe, the dragon will soar through the wind and cloud. Ao Tianxing continued, "It means that sooner or later, a person with 3 stars above his head and dragon scales under his feet will appear in the Ao clan. After going through 1,000 trials and tribulations, he will reappear the glory of the dragon race. He will soar above the wind and cloud." Ao Xieyun looked helplessly at Chu Yang, and Chu Yang smiled bitterly. "Brother, I may be knowledgeable, but I really don't know much about the things from 100,000 years ago. Therefore, even though you were in danger this time, we held back and didn't come to your rescue. That's because the strong can only grow in the land of calamity. Later on, when I learned that you were still alive, I sighed with relief and immediately decided on the great plan to cleanse the family. In the past, the clan, the cleansing, the clan, should tttst. T-clan face this tttttttts T of course. Ao Tianxing replied. If you're not strong enough, how can you awaken your bloodline? Dragon's power can destroy heaven and earth. With your current strength, how much power can't you unleash? I'm afraid you won't even be able to lift a claw. You'll be a paralyzed dragon. Chu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He looked at Ao Tianxing's serious face and tried his best not to laugh. Looks like this clan master Ao doesn't see me as a human anymore. Dragon's body. 1 claw. Paralyzed dragon. What the fuck? Ah. Minister Chu, this is Ao clan's biggest secret. Ao Tianxing turned around and said to Chu Yang, I hope you can keep this secret for us. Chu Yang sighed speechlessly. "'Tis a big secret. I shouldn't have listened in. But you let me hear it. How do you explain that?" Double quotes "'tis" for a reason. Firstly, you're Ao's savior. Ao's, Ao Xieyun's handsome face twisted again. He lowered his head in shame. Secondly, Ao's most convinced by you. I can see this clearly now. He's my son after all. Thirdly, this is no small matter. Ao's strength alone may not be enough. Ao needs someone to help him. I'm afraid we can't help him with this. Fourthly, Ao clan's purge this time may be an internal matter of our clan, but it's still a loss to everyone. Especially the Xie family. I really didn't expect such a big change. Ao Tianxing obviously knew what happened during this period of time like the back of his hand. Chu Yang nodded and calmed down. He said coldly, Clan Master Ao's opinion, how should we deal with this matter? Chu Yang wouldn't give in when it came to this issue. Ao clan's purge was for Ao Xieyun. 'Tis true. But no matter who it was for, it couldn't be done at the expense of another brother. Plus, Ao Xieyun's had been through life and death along the way. Every brother's had faced several life and death crises. Ao Xieyun's was so close to being separated forever. Ao clan's was the Ao clan's cause. It's impossible for Ao Tianxing to brush it off with just a few words. Chu Yang was the first to disagree. Ao clan must pay some price, or show some sincerity. Ao Tianxing knew that Chu Yang's words were equivalent to putting the matter on the table. Now was the critical moment. He understood and could see that's not the Xie clan's main concern in settling this matter. Chu Yang's. 'Tis Ao Xieyun's main concern. Although Ao Xieyun didn't have any great power, his heavenly army's influence was far-reaching. 'Tis was enough to influence the decision of the clan's present. So Ao Tianxing didn't dare to underestimate. This was also one of the reasons why he deliberately let Chu Yang stay and let him participate in the clan's secret. You've heard the clan's highest secret. You should at least feel some trust and goodwill, right? Who would have thought that once matter was serious, Ao Xieyun's face would turn stiff. Ao Xieyun's face was cold and emotionless. Ao Tianxing was also a little depressed. Minister Chu, what do you think? Ao clan will execute all the people involved in this matter. Ao clan will be responsible for all the expenses of rebuilding the Xie clan's home. Ao clan will form an alliance with the Xie clan from now on. Ao Tianxing said. Ao Tianxing. Chu Yang frowned. Ao Tianxing's condition was already very sincere. An alliance between the two clans was something the Xie clan could only wish for. Ao Tianxing thought. That's not enough. Chu Yang pondered for a long time and said, the Jiyu clan, Dong clan, Ji clan, Luo clan. Several dukes were attacked by your Ao clan's people. I'll pay a satisfactory price for this, Ao Tianxing said. I think there's nothing else for the time being. Chu Yang said, but the war is imminent. Ao clan sighed. Chu Yang's question was very cunning and also very insidious. Ao clan's strength had been greatly reduced. In this war, the best way was to play safe and not participate. They'd slowly recover their strength. But Chu Yang didn't ask if the Ao clan would participate. Instead, he asked, if you participate, which side will you stand on? If the Ao clan participates, we'll naturally stand on this side. Ao Tianxing felt more and more that Chu Yang wasn't easy to deal with. What if we insist on participating? Chu Yang smiled faintly and said, Ao clan's clan master, only sending a few people to meet the occasion will make everyone feel disgusted. Ao Tianxing frowned and his face darkened. His original intention was to send a few experts to assist. Ao clans had nothing to do with the outcome. But Chu Yang's words were clearly asking the Ao clan to go all out. Ao Tianxing pondered. This war is no small matter. If the Ao clan goes all out, the risk was not small. Father, no matter what happens to the clan, I've decided to advance and retreat with my brothers. Ao Xieyun saw his father's hesitation and said in a deep voice. Advance and retreat together, live and die together. Ao Tianxing's heart shook as he looked at his son. As brothers, isn't this how it should be? Ao Xieyun said calmly, if the clans decide to form an alliance. Then, if our Ao clan stays out of the matter at the moment of life and death, victory and defeat, what kind of alliance is that? All right. Ao Tianxing clenched his fist and said, since that's the case, our Ao clan will participate in this battle with all our might. Ao Xieyun was elated. Chu Yang's heart also calmed down. Ao clan's strength was at the top of the three heavens. So, it could be said that they would definitely win this battle if they were to participate with all their strength. Clan Master Ao, regarding the compensation, there are still other matters that require Clan Master Ao to discuss with Elder Xie personally. Chu Yang said, after all, I'm an outsider. Of course. Ao Tianxing nodded in agreement. The way he looked at Chu Yang became even more serious. The way this guy did things was truly watertight. He was obviously a very important person, but he was able to extricate himself from the situation at any moment. He understood the big picture and knew when to advance and retreat. Everything has been discussed, and we've fought for the greatest benefits. But, we've immediately pulled ourselves out of this matter, and threw all the details to Xie Qiu and me. But, if we can't reach an agreement and my reply isn't good, I'm afraid this guy will stick to me like a piece of rotten cowhide and refuse to let me go. Ao Tianxing frowned and compared him to his son. He sighed in his heart. Ao can also do this, but at the last moment, he will definitely participate personally. The effect of one participating and one not participating is very different. Withdrawing after everything has been discussed merits unnaturally in people's hearts. Moreover, it gives people a feeling of I won't say anything after doing a good deed, and this kind of feeling of gratitude. But, participating will make people feel like they're taking advantage of others' kindness. Chapter 677. World-Defying Stage Heavens 6, World-Defying Stage Heavens Part 1 Chapter 272. After Ao Tianxing, Xie Qiu, Dongwu Lei, and the rest talked, everyone was elated. After all, to have a strong ally like the Ao clan at this crucial moment was like a pie falling from the sky. However, the news that Ao Tianxing brought made everyone's heart heavy. The Ao clan did not intend to fully participate in this battle as there are too many variables. The Tian clan has invited the Shi clan of the upper three heavens to help. Although the Shi clan will not come in full force, even if a small force appears, it will be enough to give us a headache. Other than Mo Tianji and Chu Yang, who already knew what Ao Tianxing's first sentence was, everyone's expression changed. In addition, Tian Biyu Hui has invited Li Xiong too. Once Li Xiong too moves, the Li clan will definitely move. This is another big variable. Ao Tianxing smiled bitterly. The main opponent of the Ao clan has always been the Li clan. Of course, everyone knows about this. However, what you do not know is that the Li clan is a branch of the Li clan of the upper three heavens. Ao Tianxing's words were like a bolt from the blue. The Li clan is actually related to the Li clan of the upper three heavens? Doesn't that mean that we have to face two dominant clans of the upper three heavens at the same time? Before this, although the Li clan and the Li clan of the upper three heavens had the same surname, no one thought of that. Because it was obvious that even if the Li clan of the upper three heavens was a branch of the upper three heavens, they would definitely not come to the upper three heavens. In the heavens, the upper three heavens was the largest. The density of cultivation resources and spiritual energy was not something that the upper three heavens could compare to. If the Li clan is a branch clan, why would it be here? Xie Qiu stroked his white beard and looked worried. The ancestors of the Li clan were expelled. Ao Tianxing said calmly. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Since they were expelled, it would be easy to handle. For the past 1,000 years, the Li clan has been sending people to the upper three heavens to ask for forgiveness, wanting to return to the clan. It has been 1,000 years. It seems that the relationship has eased a lot. According to the reports of the Ao clan, the Li clan did not even accept gifts when they went to the upper three heavens. They were expelled immediately. But in the past few decades, I've been able to stay for a long time every time. I've even left behind a gift. Ao Tianxing frowned. Furthermore, in the past 200 years, the Ao clan had several opportunities to completely exterminate the Li clan, but we were all stopped at the last moment. It was all for naught. He wanted to stop this person. He must be from the upper three heavens. Xie Qiu grunted, and slowly nodded. In addition, I don't know why, but people from the great clans of the upper three heavens came down to watch this battle. It makes this battle even more confusing and full of variables, Ao Tianxing said. Everyone exclaimed in surprise. Chu Yang and Mo Tianji also let out a surprised hum. However, there was a look in his eyes. However, there was not the slightest fluctuation. The two of them looked at each other calmly and saw the danger in each other's eyes. His motive for coming down at this time was obvious. It was all for the Tribulation Sword Master. Clan leader Ao, As far as I know, there's a mysterious organization in the upper three heavens that is above the great clans. It's the Heaven Enforcers, Mo Tianji said gently, and according to the rules of the Heaven Enforcers, in order to maintain the balance of this world, they don't allow people from the upper three heavens to come to the lower three heavens or the upper three heaven. Furthermore, if there's a need, the clans will apply to the enforcers and then report. They will allow people to come down, but they have to strictly follow the time limit and do what they have to do. The enforcers will also supervise them. Once there's a violation, they will be punished immediately. They have to return within the time limit and then report to the enforcers. The enforcers will record this line and cancel the previous report. Mo Tianji said in one breath, furthermore, people from the upper three heavens don't come to seek revenge or to interfere in the upper three heavens or the lower three heavens. Otherwise, the entire clan will be punished. Is this true? Ao Tianxing's eyes flashed and he looked at Mo Tianji. He said, yes, it's true. Since that's the case, then the matter this time around is very thought-provoking. Mo Tianji smiled and said, don't tell me that the enforcers of the Heaven Enforcers don't care about the people from the Shi clan and the other clans. If that's the case, where is the fairness of the Heaven Enforcers? Any martial monarch-level expert from the upper three heavens can cause chaos in the upper three heavens. That's right, Ao Tianxing said. 2 years ago, it was very difficult for someone from the upper three heavens to come down. And it's also very difficult for someone from the upper three heavens to go up. After going up, they have to worry about losing their lives. Therefore, if one can't go up from the upper three heavens, one can't come down from the upper three heavens. That's indeed the case. Since the birth of the Calamity Sword Master, the mysteries of the heavens have been constantly changing. I'm afraid that no one can predict the current mysteries of the heavens. The tremors caused by the Calamity Sword have already appeared 3 times. The 3 Stars Divine Clan has also appeared in such a tremor. If that's the case, the crack in the heavenly layer will be bigger. In other words, the passageways that can go up and down the heavenly layer are not limited to the ones that the law enforcement officers know. There are many of them. Of course, if the enforcers want to interfere, they can still control it. But for some reason, there must be some other reason. Ao Tianxing said vaguely, that's all I can say for now. You have to know that this information is also a secret. Chu Yang and Mo Tianji replied with an "oh," and both of them sank into contemplation. From this, it could be seen that the Ao clan was also related to a certain clan in the upper three heavens. There was no need to doubt this point. Otherwise, Ao Tianxing would not have said it so clearly. The reason why Mo Tianji asked this question was not only because of what he had just said, but also because he wanted to sound out the Ao clan. Regardless of whether Ao Tianxing answered Mo Tianji's question or not, he would expose the true strength of the Ao clan. It was no wonder that Ao Tianxing looked at Mo Tianji with a complicated expression when he spoke. For the first time, Ao Tianxing felt the terror of the heavenly army. The heavenly army was made up of heavens. Any one of them was a freak that would be heavily nurtured even in the big clans of the upper three heavens. Especially recently, there was the youngest Sword Emperor and the youngest Saber Emperor in the history of the heavens. This kind of potential was already unheard of. But this was not enough. There was also the mysterious and unfathomable King of Hell Chu. This was a commander who was born to be able to determine victory from 1,000 miles away. He was meticulous in his calculations. He was shrewd and clear. No matter whether it was his wits or his schemes, he was the best choice. Even Chu Yang, who had been in the martial world for decades, had to think twice before speaking in front of him. 5 heavens, plus the mysterious King of Hell Chu. This was already very scary. But this was not enough. Now, it seemed that there was also the master of calculation and manipulation, Mo Tianji. Although Mo Tianji was young, his ability to calculate was something that even a super clan like the Ao clan would be wary of. Just like this, Mo Tianxing's question was like this. Just like that question just now. It sounded like a question out of curiosity, but it made him reveal his trump card no matter what. Damn it. And so far, Xied and Qiong seemed to be among them. This was almost all the heavens of the upper three heavens. If all these people were to grow up, What kind of terrifying force would that be? I wonder if my son Ao Seayun would be able to integrate into it. A simple oath was made to confirm the alliance of the few big clans. Seeing a few juniors gathering to the side and whispering, Ao Tianxing sighed deeply. He said to Xie Qiu, Elder Xie, "This battle will be filled with corpses." Xie Qiu sighed deeply and did not speak. If there is really a stalemate, I'm afraid that the top martial strength of the upper three heavens will be destroyed after this battle. Ao Tianxing smiled bitterly and rubbed his nose. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that he had boarded a pirate ship. That king of Hell Chu took advantage of the fact that he was in the wrong to ask the Ao clan to participate in the battle. Then, that little brat Ao added fuel to the fire. In the end, he was hot-headed and agreed, now that he thought about it, that bastard king of Hell Chu definitely used his son's hot-bloodedness and his guilt. But now, it was hard to stop halfway. Moreover, if he was not careful, the Ao clan's assets would be wiped out. This king of Hell Chu was really a sinner. I had a premonition long ago. Such a battle is equivalent to emptying the upper three heavens. Xie Qiu's old face was solemn. We have more than 5,000 people now, and all of them are experts. But when the battle is over, it will be a great fortune if even 1,000 people can survive. And this is, if we win. Ao Tianxing frowned and let out a long and short sigh. He said, I will immediately send a message by Eagle to see if the ancestors of the clan can rush over. If they can, good. Xie Qiu's eyes lit up. If the three of them can rush over, we will have a greater chance of winning this battle. Ao Tianxing sighed and turned to leave. The sun was setting in the west. The setting sun was like blood. The swaying grass whistled in the wind. More than 50 people's faces were ashen. They were tied up and kneeling on the ground. They were facing the east. Several people were struggling and wriggling in despair. Chu Yang, Mo Tianji, Jiu Duxing, and the others stood with their hands behind their backs as they watched the execution. This was a cruel massacre. It was even crueler than a battle of life and death on the battlefield. They did not want to watch, but they had to watch. Because this was different from a battle in the martial world. This was a true massacre of superiors. What was cut off was their own hearts, their own feelings, and their own worries. Therefore, Mo Tianji tried his best to force the brothers to watch and comprehend. Ji Mo, Luo Kudi, and the others had already cursed Mo Tianji in their hearts. But they knew that Mo Tianji was being the bad guy now for their own good. Ao Tianxing stood on the horse expressionlessly. He looked at the 50 people with a complicated and painful expression. The red flag in his hand was never waved down. With one order, the clan's internal problems would be eliminated. But at the same time, once this order was sent out, he would truly become a loner. He would become an only child. He remembered how his father pulled him to the bedside before he died. His tears were muddy. Tianxing, in the future, no matter what they do, you have to remember that they are your brothers. Brothers from the same mother. Ao Tianxing closed his eyes in pain. His father married 3 wives and 17 concubines in his life. He raised 35 brothers. When he successfully became the clan leader, more than 20 of them were gone. Now, these people in front of him were the last batch. His father's old face seemed to appear in front of his eyes. Ao Tianxing's cheeks twitched. He gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, I'm sorry, father. So, I won't be the only one who will die if I keep them alive. My Ao clan's 1,000-year foundation and 10,000-year hope will also die. You're in the underworld, please forgive me. I don't want to kill them, but I have to. I have to. Ao Tianxing roared to the sky. He opened his eyes and shouted with all his strength, kill. Chapter 678. With a command, the heads fell to the ground. Fresh blood gushed out and flowed all over the ground. Ao Tianxing clearly noticed that his brother looked at him with a complicated expression at the last moment, but didn't say anything. Or rather, he had already expected such an outcome from the moment he started to nurture his son to fight for the position of Ao Seayun's future clan master. But he still did it. So, He didn't have any complaints about the heads falling to the ground. He was very calm, but also very complicated. When he realized his decision earlier, Ao Tianfeng was still very shocked and despaired. But now, he couldn't even see any reluctance to leave his life. His 13th brother, Ao Tianwu, had always been the most intense person. But now, he only said one last sentence: "Let them reunite with me as soon as possible." Ao Tianxing closed his eyes, and 2 streams of tears flowed down his cheeks. "You knew. You were prepared. You clearly knew that with your strength, you wouldn't be able to turn the tables. But, why did you still do it? They were already dead." Or, these questions had already been brought to the grave. Ao Tianxing could no longer know what these brothers of his were thinking. Ao Xie Yun kept pursing his lips and watching the execution. His facial muscles were twitching. When he saw so many heads being chopped off at the same time, Ao Xie Yun clearly felt a wave of dizziness in his head. His body swayed, and he almost fell to the ground. Chu Yang was right beside him. He silently reached out a hand and supported him. He said lightly, "The winner takes all. That's all." They were already prepared. Now that things have come to this, there's no more hope. Their lifelong spiritual support has already collapsed, or they're just walking corpses. Death is a kind of relief. Relief. Ha ha ha. Ao Xie Yun laughed bitterly. Yes. Relief. Their son is dead, and they themselves have no more hope. Decades of hard work has become meaningless. If you're soft-hearted and let them live like dead people for the rest of their lives, it'll be the cruelest torture for them. It'll be a good thing for them to cut off all ties. Although it's cruel for you to be alive, no matter how cruel it is, you have to bear it. Chu Yang smiled comfortingly. He said, "Fortunately, humans have the greatest ability, or talent, and that is to forget. No matter what it is, it can be forgotten." Chu Yang smiled indifferently. However, he sighed deeply in his heart. "I did console Ao Xie Yun like this. But, can a person really forget everything? Then why are there so many things that I can't forget?" Forgetting. Ao Xie Yun repeated these 2 words. Then, he slowly said, "Forgetting is indeed the greatest ability of humans." On the other side, the brothers were all deep in thought. This was a massacre. It was different from others. He had personally witnessed brothers killing each other. Compared to seeing an enemy die in front of him, it was a completely different feeling. The shock and emotion it brought to his heart was extremely intense. Ao clan was the #1 clan of the 3 heavens. So, they had no choice but to carry out this extremely heart-wrenching purge. And, this was even more shocking. Xiedan Qiong thought to himself, life in this world is perhaps just like the blood that spurts out from this neck cavity. It's brilliant yet cruel, and it's gone in a flash. However, it's a life. And, my viburnum flower is just like that. It's the most beautiful flower that blooms with the fragrance of death, and takes away the last attachment of the world. The viburnum flower doesn't bloom for people to admire. It blooms for heartlessness. No matter who sees the viburnum flower, as long as the viburnum flower blooms for him, he will undoubtedly die. So, it's the viburnum flower. Xiedan Qiong seemed to have understood something as this thought arose in his heart. He seemed to have felt an itch in his palm. He couldn't suppress the feeling of wanting to take the viburnum flower out. Luo Kudi thought to himself, "This is cruel. No matter what, I must avoid it in my life." As he thought, he looked in the direction of his elder brother, Luo Kuwu. He became even more determined to leave the clan and protect his family. Jimo thought to himself, "This kind of thing will never happen to me. I don't need to worry about it." As he thought like this, he suddenly became carefree. He only felt that his heart was incomparably open-minded. However, Rui Biu Tong's heart froze for a moment. He inexplicably felt his heartbeat quicken a little. It seemed that this fresh blood had a strong stimulation for him. He wondered, why have I become interested in fresh blood ever since I advanced in the far north wastelands? At the same time, he felt a scorching heat in his blood. It was as if something was about to burn. However, it didn't burn in the end. Jiu Duxing's eyes were cold and sharp. His sword heart was unmoved. He thought to himself, All of this has nothing to do with me. My mission is to use my sword to flatten the enemies in front of us and go straight to the heavens. His mind was the most resolute among the brothers. He was actually unmoved in the slightest. In an instant, he stood together with the others. Although he didn't move at all, it was as if he was isolated. Sword energy actually rushed out of his body uncontrollably and hovered in the air. At the same time, a kind of magnificent indifference also appeared. Sword of solitude, heart of indifference. Dong Wushang's palm tightened. He actually felt as if he was holding a saber. In an instant, it was as if the executioner standing there waving the saber was himself. He thought to himself, heartless. The saber of the Ao clan is heartless. Even if they are blood brothers, as long as they are enemies, they will still kill mercilessly. Clearly, they are extremely heartless. It is rather similar to my saber from the heartless heavens. But since they are so resolute and heartless, why is Ao Tianxing crying? It can be seen that in this heartless land, there are still emotions. I have to do it, I still have to do it, I have to kill, I still have to kill, but it is different from pure heartless killing. This is the realm of emotions. The saber needs to have emotions. Dong Wushang thought silently. He seemed to be slightly touched. It was also from this moment onwards that Dong Wushang began to have the tendency to leave the heartless saber Dao. He began to slowly explore the sentient saber Dao. Perhaps even Mo Tianji, who forced Dong Wushang to come and watch, didn't expect that his coercion this time would actually become Dong Wushang's true intention. He had created an unparalleled saber Dao grandmaster who was unprecedented and unparalleled in history. The saber of the heavenly Dao. In the face of this heart-wrenching massacre, each of the brothers had their own enlightenment. It was also from this moment onwards that the differences in everyone's personalities were slowly and clearly manifested. They formed different but equally colorful paths in life. Mo Tianji was indifferent and carefree. He looked at the falling saber and the blood swirling in the air. But his mind began to indulge in flights of fancy for no reason. If there comes a day when these brothers go against me and Chu Yang, can I be like Ao Tianxing in front of me? Or like how I dealt with Mo Tianyun in the past? Thinking this way, Mo Tianji actually fell into a momentary daze. Until Chu Yang patted him heavily on the shoulder. Mo Tianji suddenly woke up from a dream. He shivered and his whole body was suddenly drenched in cold sweat. Just now, he had almost let himself fall into a heartless scheme. He was racking his brains to think about future betrayals and disputes. Just as he was thinking viciously, he was awakened by Chu Yang's slap. What's wrong? Seeing Mo Tianji's head drenched in cold sweat, Chu Yang couldn't help but ask with concern. Dong Wushang, Jiyu Duxing, Ji Mo, and the others also looked over with concern. Many pairs of concerned eyes. The warm eyes made the coldness in Mo Tianji's heart melt like snowflakes under the warm sun. His heart gradually calmed down. He couldn't help but think, my intelligence is on par with Chu Yang's. Even if I surpass him in the subtleties, I'm far from being able to determine victory from 1,000 miles away. But my problem is that I think too much. So, I'm not as happy as Chu Yang and the others. Thinking about it again, he continued, but when it comes to scheming, the scheming of flies and dogs, and the kind of thinking that leads to the ultimate happiness, they're not as good as me. Everyone has their own ambitions. How can I expect everyone in the world to be king of Hell Chu? Everyone in the world is the master of calculation and manipulation. If you're not a fish, how can you know the happiness of a fish? Thinking this way, Mo Tianji's mind suddenly became clear. He smiled slightly. Chu Yang looked at Mo Tianji thoughtfully. He said deeply, "You've thought it through?" Mo Tianji was startled. Then, he smiled, "I've completely thought it through." He thought, I've always thought that Chu Yang's observation of the subtleties was far inferior to mine. But now, it seems that his understanding of me is far superior to mine. He didn't know that Chu Yang's understanding of Mo Tianji was far superior to his own. Even if everyone in Tianji added together, their understanding of Mo Tianji could not compare. Mo Tianji was an extremely contradictory person. He valued friendship more than his life. But at the same time, he ignored friendship in the world. He didn't think it was worth mentioning. Even though he valued friendship and longed for friends, he felt that no one in the world could understand him. No one was worthy of being his friend. So, even though he was the master of calculation and manipulation, he became friends with Chu Yang at that time. It was only because they were on the same wavelength. But when it came to familial love, which he disdained the most, he would sacrifice his only friend for his younger sister. It didn't matter if he regretted it or if he felt guilty or if his conscience was disturbed, he still did it. So, when Chu Yang saw Mo Tianji looking at the blood on the execution ground, his eyes suddenly flashed with worry and killing intent. He immediately knew what he was thinking. So, Chu Yang immediately slapped him to wake him up. Otherwise, once Mo Tianji formed a so-called budget in his mind and decided on what to do at that time, no one would be able to stop him from preparing for a rainy day now. It's good that you've thought it through. Chu Yang patted Mo Tianji's shoulder and said meaningfully, actually, there aren't so many things in the world. It's just life and death, that's all. But, when there are more people, more thoughts, and more conspiracies, if you don't think about anything, then the whole world will be peaceful. Mo Tianji sighed, you cannot think about it, but I can't. He smiled bitterly, just like when a predecessor wrote a poem. The original intention was to praise the flowing water, but it was repeatedly interpreted by the later generations as the sorrow of spring, the sorrow of parting, the heavenly law, and the love between a man and a woman. But all the things that the later generations speculated were things that even the person who wrote the poem didn't think of. Who can explain the things in this world? Everyone says that the later generations had nothing to do, but who knows the excitement and satisfaction that these people had when they discovered the meaning of the poem that no one had discovered before? And I'm this kind of person. Mo Tianji said indifferently but sincerely, I don't know how to analyze poems, but I know how to analyze victory and defeat, analyze people's hearts, and plan for the future. You didn't think of it, but I did. This is my pleasure. Chu Yang said quietly, this is too tiring. Mo Tianji smiled gently, what in the world isn't tiring? Who in the world isn't tired? Even if it's tiring, who doesn't enjoy it? Chapter 679. All the clans gathered their forces and moved forward. After turning this mountain pass, we will reach the Lake of Despair. Ao Tian Xing pointed his horse whip at the mountain pass in front of them. Chu Yang smiled. His eyes shone with a sharp light as he looked at the mountain pass. How could he not be familiar with this place? In his previous life, he had obtained the fourth fragment of the Sword of Calamity here. But in this life, after turning this mountain pass, he might face an unpredictable crisis. Heaven's secret is in chaos, the sword heart is broken, and there is no other shore in the Lake of Despair. Chu Yang thought coldly, I want to see how this Lake of Despair will prevent me from reaching the other shore. Mo Tianji looked at the mountain pass in a daze. For a long time, he did not say a word. When Ao Tian Xing gave the order to move forward, Mo Tianji suddenly came to his senses. Then, Mo Tianji did something. Clan leader Ao, brother Dong, elder Xie. Our battle this time will be a fierce one. I'm afraid that after this battle, regardless of whether we win or lose, we will suffer heavy casualties. He coughed and said, but at the moment, who is in charge of the deployment of the troops? It's not clear yet. Dong Wu Lei, Luo Ku Wu, and Jiju said unanimously, Brother Mo can make the decision. Xie Qiu said, I've heard of the master of calculation and manipulation for a long time. Today, I want to see it for myself. Mo Tianji looked at Ao Tian Xing. Ao Tian Xing pondered for a long time and said, since this is the case, why don't we let clan leader Mo take charge of our troops? He knew that Mo Tianji was asking for the right to command when he said this. But Ao Tian Xing knew his own name. He could be the clan leader, but as a commander, he was far behind Mo Tianji and Chu Yang. No one dared to underestimate these two people. So, he went with the flow and gave in. Mo Tianji took a deep breath and said, I dare not to obey. He didn't even try to decline modestly, and just agreed to it. Chu Yang felt something and looked at him. Mo Tianji turned his head. He was urging the Ao and Xie clans to report the deployment of their troops to him. He thought to himself, Others may not understand the situation. Even if more people die, I have to protect him. That's right, I'll be the one in charge. AO clan had a total of 570 people. There were 50 emperor-level experts, 2 monarch-level experts, and the rest were all king-level experts. He could be considered to be one of them. The strongest one. The Dawn clan had 1 monarch-level expert, 17 emperor-level experts, and 10 king-level experts. The Ji clan had emperor-level experts and 14 king-level experts. The Luo clan had 8 emperor-level experts and more than 40 king-level experts. The Mo clan had 5 emperor-level experts and over 100 king-level experts. Most of them. They were recruited by Mo Tianji recently. The Jiyu clan had 1 emperor-level expert. It was the clan master, Jiyu Duxing, and 20 king-level experts. The Xie clan was the most miserable one. It used to be a big clan that was on par with the Dawn clan. But, it now only had 1 monarch-level expert, 1 emperor-level expert, and more than 30 king-level experts. The current lineup consisted of 4 monarch-level experts, 10 emperor-level experts, and a few king-level experts. This was a rather powerful force. It could be said that, if the other party didn't have any external help, they would undoubtedly win this battle with their current strength. One must know that this force was basically all the high-end forces of the top clans in the 3 heavens. Only a few experts were left in each clan to look after their clans. They had already done their best. Is there still no movement from the dark bamboo? Mo Tianji asked. Jun Shizhu and Duke Yu are in seclusion. The people of the dark bamboo have all gone underground. They don't show their faces in Jianghu. No news of their movements has been leaked. Ao Tianxing's intelligence network was also very good. He naturally knew the ins and outs of the biggest underworld forces in the 3 heavens. What a pity. Mo Tianji sighed. Then, he ordered, from now on, all the clans will be in chaos. All the king-level experts will be gathered. Get familiar with each other. The emperor-level experts will gather together. The monarch-level experts will form a group. Everyone will use their own experience to cooperate with their companions. Research the best joint attack or defense plan. Everyone must have a plan within half a day. If you don't have a plan after half a day, please withdraw from this decisive battle. Mo Tianji's voice was heavy. It was as if a storm was coming. Start the operation immediately. As soon as the order was given, the crowd dispersed with a bang. Ao Tianxing's eyes were full of admiration. Since they were going to join forces and prepare for a chaotic battle, it was necessary to understand each other. And those who didn't know what to do after half a day would affect the performance of the others. It was better to withdraw directly. Chu Yang, you will be with Dong Wushong, Xiedan Qiong, Jiyu Duxing, Jimo, Luo Kudi, Rui Biu Tong, Tan Tan, and Ao Xieyun. Your mission will be to deal with emergencies. Chu Yang will lead this. You will act randomly. Mo Tianji didn't look at Chu Yang as he spoke. Instead, he looked at Jiyu Duxing and Dong Wushong. Their expressions didn't change. But Mo Tianji clearly saw the words "don't worry" in their eyes. Watch Chu Yang at all costs. Don't let him take any risks. Don't let him get hurt. Not at all. Even if we lose this battle, nothing can happen to Chu Yang. This was Mo Tianji's arrangement. It wasn't just Jiyu Duxing and Dong Wushong. Jimo, Luo Kudi, and Rui Biu Tong also received this message. As for Tan Tan, Chu Yang didn't feel at ease with Tan Tan. Secondly, Mo Tianji also hoped that Tan Tan would be able to awaken once again in case an unpredictable crisis appeared. That would be more powerful than any protection. The abacus in Mo Tianji's stomach was making pop 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 noises. Of course, only a few people knew about this. Everyone else was kept in the dark. Then, Mo Tianji began to allocate supplies. He gave a strategic speech. He gave a variety of tactics and responses. He included poisons, hidden weapons, and sneak attacks. He targeted almost every clan and every expert above 5th grade emperor level. Everyone was convinced by his words. How could they have imagined that the master of calculation and manipulation had already finished his little abacus under such careful arrangements, after some arrangements, everyone set out in silence. They didn't stop this time. They majestically rushed through the mountain pass. They walked for 7 or 8 miles. There were 3 forks in the road. They came from the east and west respectively. Then, at the intersection point, a straight path appeared. It seemed to go straight into the clouds. This path led to the Lake of Death. At the beginning of this path, a huge stone tablet stood tall. There were a few words carved on it: Path of Life and Death, Netherworld Pass. The words were blood red. It was as if a river of blood had suddenly appeared in front of them. Everyone who saw these words felt an inexplicable chill in their hearts. They only felt that their hearts were heavy. It was as if a huge rock was pressing down on their chests. In an instant, there was complete silence. These words were said to be written by supreme martial artist Chen Feng. Mo Tianji said, "Legend has it that the battle between supreme martial artist Chen Feng and supreme martial artist Liu Yun took place here. Before supreme martial artist Chen Feng went up the mountain, he used the soil as a tablet and his hand as a brush. He carved these words." Ao Tian Xing continued, "After supreme martial artist Chen Feng went up the mountain, he placed this pressure on the tablet. When Paragon Flowing Cloud arrived, he stopped in front of the stone stele for about 7 or 8 minutes. He didn't do anything other than suppress the pressure from the stone stele. Then, a soundless explosion could be heard, and 2 paths appeared, connecting the east and west of the mountain. Paragon Flowing Cloud laughed loudly. He then went up the mountain. 1 day later, the words on the tablet turned red. It has never changed color." Ao Tian Xing pointed to the 2 paths, including the one that everyone had just walked on. He said, "These 2 paths are probably the 2 smoothest paths in the entire 3 heavens. It has been tens of thousands of years. There is no change. Its hardness is comparable to star iron." Everyone was preoccupied with their thoughts along the way. Now that they looked at it, the path was indeed very smooth. There was not even a single bump or hole. It was even smoother than a lady's face. At the head of the group, one of the experts did not believe it. He pulled out his long sword, pointed it downwards, and stabbed it down. With a crack, the long sword broke into 2. However, there was not a single mark on the ground. There was not even a small white spot. So hard. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The battle between the 2 supreme martial artists tens of thousands of years ago had caused the ground to be compressed. Even now, it was still so powerful. Everyone's hearts were filled with reverence and respect. At this moment, the 2 of them started to chuckle. Turning around, they saw Ji Mo winking at them. He said, "Little wolf, when are we going to spar here and leave behind a new legend?" Luo Kudi agreed and said, "That's right. We can't let our predecessors monopolize everything. When the time comes, I'll straighten my back, and you'll bow with your back facing me. Then, you'll fall backwards, and there will be a loud bang, and another path will appear." Ji Mo was furious. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws. He pounced forward. "I'll beat you to death, you impudent brat." The 2 of them started fighting. With just a few words, the solemn atmosphere from before had vanished into thin air. Everyone did not know whether to laugh or cry. They looked at the 2 of them strangely and sighed helplessly. These 2 bastards, when will they be serious for a while? Huyen Ao Bo and Xiedan Feng thought for a long time but still could not figure out what it meant. However, they saw the vulgar faces of the men around them. They were laughing with a deeper meaning. Even the martial monarchs had strange expressions. They shrugged their shoulders and laughed lasciviously. They immediately knew that it was not something good. Huyen Ao Bo was furious. She reached out and lifted Ji Mo up. Second Master Ji's 4 limbs were suspended in the air. His fiancée slapped him a few times on the butt. He screamed continuously. At this moment, a rumbling sound came from the opposite side. It was obvious that a large group of people was coming from the opposite side. "I'm afraid they're coming." Mo Tianji frowned. Everyone's faces showed vigilance. They stood still and looked in the opposite direction. They could not move at this moment. They were too close. If the other party had bad intentions and attacked from behind, they would suffer a great loss. It was better to observe the situation and wait for them to come. The rumbling sound came closer and closer. It was deafening. Then, in the next moment, a black flag suddenly rushed out from the mountain pass. It fluttered in the wind. Chapter 680. Behind the big black flag was a team of pitch-black knights. They were wearing black clothes, black cloaks, black shoes, and black masks. Even their horses were pitch-black without a single strand of mixed hair. It was as if the entire troop had suddenly charged out from hell. The first person in the lead immediately spotted the troops and horses on the other side. With a sharp whistle, he spun around and leapt into the air. All the horses stood up neatly on their front hooves. Then, they galloped forward for a jog before coming to a halt. With a boom, dust filled the sky. "People of the Black Devil," Chu Yang said indifferently. Everyone felt that it was a little inconceivable. People of the Black Devil were actually in charge of the other side's team? The assassins who had always been in charge of assassinations in the dark were actually in charge of the vanguard? This was too inconceivable. The person in the front was the Black Devil young master. He was riding on the horse. His cold eyes looked at the people on the other side and stopped on Dong Wushang's face. Then, he said eerily, "Your speed is not slow." Chu Yang said indifferently, "Brother Hei's fast horse is also extremely fast." The Black Devil laughed eerily. Dong Wushang frowned and said loudly, "Black Devil, your laughter is really unpleasant to hear. It sounds like a crow cawing. Are you not an assassin if you don't laugh like this? What kind of upbringing is this?" Ji Mo and Luo Ku Di concurred with each other as soon as these words came out. They were all people who wished for the world to be in chaos. Moreover, they were enemies of the Black Devil clan. So, they were about to engage in a life-and-death battle. Behind the Black Devil young master, countless pairs of cold eyes shot out murderous auras. All the assassins put their hands on the hilts of their swords. They were about to fight to the death once the order was given. Unexpectedly, the Black Devil young master seemed to be startled for a moment. Then, he lowered his head. Then, he raised his head and said, "Brother Dong is right. Using your voice to maintain your mystery is indeed a little laughable." His voice had already become calm and peaceful. Everyone was shocked. What was going on? The Black Devil young master, who was known to shake the entire three heavens, was actually subdued by Dong Wushang's words. Wasn't this too outrageous? Even Dong Wushang himself was extremely surprised. He said, "Don't mind it, Brother Hei." His personality was wild and overbearing. He wouldn't budge in the slightest, but once the other party went along with what he said, he would have nowhere to use his strength. He was a classic example of being amenable to coaxing but not coercion. The Black Demon young master's eyes seemed to flash with a smile. Among the Black Devils, a person whose entire body was covered in a black robe raised his head and looked at the young Black Devil in front of him with a puzzled expression. Then, he fell into deep thought. "You have quite a lot of people." The Black Devil young master mischievously laughed as he looked at the other party's lineup. "You have about the same number of people, right?" Chu Yang felt strange in his heart. "So," he asked in agreement. "Of course." The Black Demon young master sneered arrogantly, "Even if you have the advantage in numbers, you won't be able to escape defeat in the end." "Oh." Chu Yang laughed, "Not necessarily. Brother Hei, where did you get your confidence from? In this Chu's eyes, your clans are no different from chickens and dogs." The Black Demon young master sneered, arrogant. "What do you know? Even though you have the help of the AO clan. However, the AO clan has nothing to rely on when facing our camp." Chu Yang sneered, "Dream on." The Black Demon young master seemed to be angered by him. He said without thinking, "You only have 4 martial monarchs. And each of our big clans has 3. Moreover, we have reinforcements this time. The Shi clan of the upper 3 heavens not only has 4 martial monarchs, but also a martial saint. Do you think people like you can resist?" A cough came from behind. The Black Demon young master paused for a moment. Then, as if he suddenly realized something, he said angrily, "Dong Wushang. You dare to trick me?" Dong Wushang held his breath and said angrily, "What does this have to do with me? In his heart, he thought, it's clearly Boss Chu who has been trying to trick you and set a trap for you. Why did he indiscriminately push the blame onto me in the end? This is too unreasonable. Dong Wushong was filled with anger. He couldn't think of a reason. The others were also confused. They felt that the Black Demon young master was a little muddle-headed. But Chu Yang and Mo Tianji, who were at the side, knew what was going on. It was true that Chu Yang was trying to trick him, but the other party's words were obviously said deliberately. Moreover, he deliberately threw out the trump card and strength of their side. This news was very important to the people on Chu Yang's side. As the Black Demon young master, how could he not be smart enough? Although he didn't know why the Black Demon young master did this, the last sentence of the Black Demon young master was very clear. I'm telling you all this not because you're smart, King of Hell Chu, but because I'm doing Dong Wushong a favor. This is my gift to Dong Wushong. It has nothing to do with you. Chu Yang was puzzled. Why did the Black Demon do Dong Wushong a favor? What kind of relationship does he have with Dong Wushong? He said tentatively, Martial Saint. Haha. Brother Black, this joke of yours is really big. The Black Demon young master looked at Dong Wushong's angry face. He was actually angry. He couldn't help but feel a little depressed. He sighed secretly and thought to himself, this is a piece of wood. A wooden club. This really makes me angry. But this kind of temper is also cute. He said, Brother Chu, if you don't believe me, you can wait and see. He changed the topic and said, since Brother Chu is here, why don't you go up? Chu Yang's eyes flashed. He said, I was about to go up. But Brother Black came too fast. It made me have some scruples. Haha. The Black Demon young master sneered and said, since we agreed to a fair battle, how can we, the Black Demons, be despicable people who attack from behind? Brother Chu, you can go up first. Chu Yang smiled and said, thank you, Brother Black. He became more and more certain. This skinny Black Demon in front of him must have some kind of unclear entanglement with Dong Wushong. Otherwise, with the Black Demon's insidious nature, how could he let go of such a good opportunity? Moreover, the two sides were fighting on the top. The first to go up would naturally occupy the advantageous terrain. The Black Demon young master didn't fight for it. This was another strange thing. Chu Yang was puzzled. He thought, this is really strange. If I think about it this way, I'm afraid the Black Demon young master deliberately stood in front to send us a message. He was prepared. But what did Dong Wushong do? Why did he repay him like this? The Black Demon young master gathered his men and didn't take any action. Mo Tianji gave an order. The large group of men and horses began to climb up the mountain in an orderly manner. When more than half of the group had entered the mountain, the formation was slightly scattered. At this moment, it was the best time for a sneak attack. In the Black Demon young master's group, a masked man quietly raised his hand. However, the Black Demon young master suddenly appeared in front of him and pulled his hand. What's wrong? This man looked coldly at the Black Demon young master with strong doubts and puzzlement. I originally thought that you deliberately released the news to trick them and gain their temporary trust. But you did it at the moment when they were climbing the mountain. You launched an attack to cause them the greatest damage. Why are you stopping me now? The Black Demon young master opened his mouth to speak. But he couldn't say anything. He just lowered his head. Give me a reason, that man said coldly. Father. The Black Demon young master hesitated. He lowered his head and stubbornly pursed his lips. It turned out that this man was the #1 mysterious assassin of the Black Demon young master. If you don't say it, I'll give the order. It'll be too late if you delay any longer. The Black Demon young master's eyes flashed with a cold light. Father. The Black Demon young master became anxious. He raised his head and revealed a pleading look in his eyes. After a long time, he moved his lips close to his father's ear and whispered, Father. I like Dong Wushong. Ah! The Black Demon young master exclaimed. Even though his mental fortitude was strong and few people could compare to him, at this moment, when he heard such a subversive sentence, his mind was thrown into chaos. It was already very good that he didn't fall off the horse. At this moment, both sides were enemies. A battle of life and death was about to begin. His daughter was telling him that she liked the enemy at this time. Wasn't this a joke? The surrounding assassins looked over in confusion. They didn't expect that the Black Demon young master, who had always killed without batting an eyelid, would be so shocked. The Black Demon young master's voice was a little shy. But his eyes showed that he was ready to risk everything. Since he had said it, he might as well say it clearly. Moreover, there would be no turning back once the battle started. This was no doubt his last chance. He bit his lips. His voice was soft but clear. But this soft voice became a thunderclap in his father's ears. It was like a thunderbolt from the clear sky. She said, "I like Dong Wushong. So, I don't want him to get hurt. I want him to be unharmed for the rest of his life. I want to be with him. I want to marry him. To be his wife. So, I will do this today. So, Father, please fulfill my wish." The Black Demon young master's face was covered. Her expression couldn't be seen. But her eyes were shy and determined. She only had a good impression of Dong Wushong. Although she was secretly in love with him, it wasn't to the point where she would talk about marriage. But this time, she made it sound like the wood was already a boat. Her purpose was, this was her last chance. If she didn't make a decision now, she would become a life and death enemy half a day later. There would be no other possibility in this life. The Black Demon young master felt his head rumble. He saw stars and his body swayed. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. "I'm not dreaming, am I?" The Black Demon young master looked at his daughter, dumbfounded. His eyes were rolling to the back of his head. It could be seen how shocked he was. "Do you know what you're saying?" The Black Demon young master asked in disbelief. "Do you know, how deep is the hatred between us and the Dong, Ji, and Mo clans? How many people and important people from these clans have died in our hands? Do you know that this hatred will never be resolved? Do you know that we are fighting a decisive battle with them? Do you know whether you're crazy or not?" The Black Demon young master's chest was about to explode. He said sternly, "You're crazy." Chapter 681. I am crazy. The Black Demon young master said sadly, "But this is my last chance. If you don't agree, I can only fight. At most, I will die. But if you agree, this is my last chance to redeem myself." The Black Demon young master sighed and was stunned. This was his only daughter. The Mo clan and the Black Demon clan had been enemies for generations. In the battle that year, the great elder of the Mo clan, Mo Wuxin, was ruthless. He killed his wife and left behind a 2-year-old daughter. He raised her with great difficulty and treated her like a treasure. She was even more precious than his own life. His daughter also lived up to his expectations. Her aptitude was heaven-defying. Her understanding of martial arts was even better. It seemed that she could take over his mantle and become the new generation of black demons. The Black Demon young master was satisfied and gratified. He felt that he had not let down his late wife. But he had always ignored it. Or rather, he had deliberately forgotten it because he could not bear to do it. A man should marry, and a woman should marry. His daughter had to marry when she grew up. But today, his daughter's worries had finally come, and at such a critical moment. The most critical thing was that she had taken a fancy to his enemy. What should he do? The Black Demon young master looked at his daughter with a complicated expression. This daughter who had always treated him like a man, was she finally experiencing her first awakening of love? The father and daughter stood facing each other. The atmosphere became tense. How could the Black Demon young master still care about killing the enemy? The Black Demon young master's subordinates did not receive any orders. They could only wait and watch as the enemy team entered the mountain path like rolling thunder. They raised a cloud of dust and slowly went away. After the team went up the mountain, 4 old men suddenly appeared. They looked at the Black Demon young master's team and sneered. Then, they turned around and chased after the team. They went up the mountain like a whirlwind. Seeing this, the Black Demon young master's assassins broke out in cold sweat. These were the 4 martial monarchs of the enemy team. They were actually arranged by Mo Tianji to cover the retreat. Not only did Mo Tianji not believe the Black Demon young master's words, but he had also prepared in advance. This was not just a precaution. It was purely a vicious trap. If the Black Demon young master dared to act rashly, then the enemy would immediately have a reason to kill them. Just these 4 monarch-level experts alone were enough to kill the Heimo's assassins several times. In that case, the Heimo clan would be crippled before the war even started. However, the father and son who were currently in a daze did not notice. The hearts of the father and daughter were in a mess. Young Black Demon's heart was thumping wildly. He bit his lips and didn't dare to look at his father's face. However, he stubbornly tilted his head. Enmity? I know. Old grudges? I know. Too late? I know. But I just like it. This kind of love, was it something that could be stopped by hatred? Was it something that he could decide? He couldn't. Black Demon gasped for breath, his expression complicated. Helpless and powerless. When had this generation's top assassin ever revealed such a gaze? Not even once. When had he ever been so weak? But at this moment, he really didn't know what to do. The hatred that had lasted for generations became more and more intense. Both of them felt pain towards each other, and both of them had lost their families. On one hand, it was his family feud. On the other hand, it was his daughter's lifelong happiness. How should he choose? The Black Demon sighed again and again in disappointment. He was cold-hearted and ruthless. Killing and robbing people was the most common thing for him. He was able to make a name for himself as a cold-hearted assassin in the upper 3 heavens, a world where the strong preyed on the weak. How could he be a soft-hearted person? However, there was only one person in his life that he had to protect no matter what. He had to risk his life, and that person was his daughter. Darling. Black Demon swallowed his saliva with difficulty and said carefully, "Are you joking with me? How can I joke about such an important matter?" Young Black Demon rolled her eyes and said angrily, "Ayo. My dear daughter." Black Demon narrowed his eyes. He grabbed his daughter, and the father and daughter left the group. Then, they went behind a big rock that was 300 feet away. They stayed far away from their own team. Once they were behind the rock, Black Demon gasped for breath. When he was in the team, his daughter's words almost caused him to lose his breath. He suppressed it with great difficulty. However, he finally spat it out at this moment. He gasped for breath and stared at his daughter. "What do you want?" Then, he said, "Take off your mask. Don't talk to me with your face covered. I want to see every expression on your face. If you're serious about what you're saying, take it off and face me honestly." Young Black Demon slowly took off her mask. Her beautiful face was revealed. Her face was blushing. She was extremely shy. She lowered her head deeply. Seeing his daughter like this, Black Demon didn't need to ask any more questions. He could only sigh deeply. He felt sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, and salty in his heart. What should he do? Our Black Demon clan. In the past 200 years, we've assassinated 3 important members of the Dawn clan. 2 of our supreme elders died at the hands of the Dawn clan. These are only the losses of the higher-ups of the 2 clans. Black Demon sighed heavily. The Dawn clan has formed an alliance with the Mo clan. Our clan and the Mo clan have been mortal enemies for these years. Although Mo Wu Shin of the Mo family is dead, your mother was still killed by him. Therefore, the Black Demon clan's main operations have been targeting the Mo clan. This includes the assassinations in the upper 3 heavens and the traps in the lower 3 heavens. This includes the assassination of Mo Tianji and the plan to destroy Mo Qingwu in the heavens. This is the deep hatred between the 2 clans. Dong Wu Shong is in the heavenly army. He respects King of Hell Chu the most. King of Hell Chu and Mo Tianji are close friends now. More importantly, King of Hell Chu loves Mo Tianji's sister Mo Qingwu very much. He almost became enemies with Mo Tianji because of Mo Qingwu's injury. He also sees the Mo clan as his enemy. This situation improved after the deaths of Mo Tianyun and Mo Wu Shin. However, no matter how they improved, Mo Qingwu was almost destroyed by us. This is a fact. King of Hell Chu can forgive Mo Tianji and the Mo clan. However, he will never forgive us black demons. And Dong Wushong is now following King of Hell Chu's lead. Is it possible that he will fight for you in front of King of Hell Chu? The black demon asked in a deep voice. Are you sure about this? No. The black demon young master said weakly. Dong Wushong doesn't know that I'm a girl yet. You, PFFF. The black demon choked on this sentence and spat out a mouthful of thick phlegm. He almost choked and spat out the phlegm. He rolled his eyes and gasped. He doesn't know that you're a girl. Are you trying to anger me to death? The black demon young master lowered her head and remained silent. Since he doesn't know, that means, it's only your one-sided passion. The black demon looked at his daughter in disbelief. Yes. The black demon young master lowered her head and answered firmly. She was born in the black demon clan in the upper three heavens. This special world and special environment allowed this girl to see things very clearly. Since the beginning, she knew that she had to work hard to fight for what she wanted. Otherwise, even if her life was destined to be hers, it would be snatched away by others. Therefore, today, this was her last chance. She had to grasp it tightly. If she didn't say it clearly and firmly, she wouldn't get her father's support. The shyness of a young girl. Compared to shyness, face, and her lifelong happiness, they were not worth mentioning. Therefore, although she was so embarrassed that she almost fainted, she still answered every question clearly and clearly. The black demon stood up and turned around. Then, he came back. Darling, forget about him. Forget about him. The black demon young master's heart turned cold. She said sadly, can you forget your mother? The black demon's body shook. He suddenly opened his mouth and then closed it. He clenched his teeth and turned his head away. He lowered his eyes. It was a kind of heart-wrenching pain. It was a kind of desperate roar, but he couldn't roar out. He couldn't swallow it down. It was a kind of hopeless pain in his chest. Every time this kind of pain surged up, his heart would break and his soul would be lost. He would rather die. Could he forget? If he could, would he be in this state? I understand. The black demon lowered his head and smiled bitterly. He raised his head. He looked up very high, almost parallel to the sky. He didn't want his daughter to see his face. He said, before your mother died, she was the only one who couldn't let go. It was you. She wanted me to ensure your lifelong happiness no matter what. He stopped and looked at the sky for a long time. After a long time, he finally said, if Dong Wushong also has feelings for you, I will. I will fulfill your wish. The young black demon's heart trembled. She said, I'm sorry, father. She knew what the black demon clan had to pay if she and Dong Wushong really wanted to be together. To her cruel, arrogant, and domineering father, this was tantamount to a kind of blow that almost took away all his pride. Moreover, at this moment, both sides had already decided. Dong Wushong's side was obviously at a disadvantage. Even with the Black Demon clan, they were definitely not a match for the Shi clan of the upper three heavens. Once the position changed, not only would they have to bear the name of betrayal, they would also have to be prepared to pay with their lives. But he still made this decision for his daughter. You don't need to say sorry to me. Because you are my daughter. Even if the daughter of the Black Demon wants the stars in the sky, I will pluck them and hold them in the palm of my daughter's hand. The Black Demon turned his back to his daughter and laughed. He said, if my daughter needs to say sorry to me, then, when I go to the underworld, how will I face your mother? The young Black Demon's face was full of tears. She choked and couldn't say anything. Even if you are a girl, you still can't cry so easily. The Black Demon laughed. Go back. A month had already passed. When Chu Fei Ling and young Ruolan left the iron-cloud imperial palace of the lower three heavens, they almost looked back with every step. Chapter 682. These days, the child was almost always carried by young Ruolan. The 1-month-old child was chubby. His black eyes were already very lively. His chubby little hands were scratching and scratching. He looked charmingly naive. There was a chubby meat nest on each of his knuckles. Young Ruolan liked him to the bone. Moreover, the little guy's babbling every day was like the sound of nature in her ears. Even his cries caused her to tremble and her heart to ache. It was also a unique pleasure. Now, she had no choice but to leave the lower three heavens for her son. Young Ruolan was really reluctant. Lan Maixian and Wu Qianqian had already left for the upper three heavens 7 or 8 days ago. Senior sister. I still want to ask you for that. Tai Butian looked at young Ruolan. Her eyes were a little red. She said calmly, if you see him, please don't tell him. These days, Tai Butian saw that young Ruolan really liked the child. She also tacitly approved of young Ruolan's hogging of the child. This made young Ruolan's heart feel very happy and satisfied. Young Ruolan looked at her. Her eyes were very gentle but also very helpless. Butian, is it really just like this? Even if you don't think for yourself, think for the child. Tai Butian shook her head calmly and said, I've thought about it. Young Ruolan sighed sadly. This woman was so strong and considerate. She is in a high position, but she is not arrogant at all. She is natural and unparalleled, sensible and considerate. It would be difficult to find another woman like her even if one searched the entire heavens with a lantern. I really don't know why that bastard Chu Yang's heart was blinded by lard. Which vixen seduced his soul? He actually turned a blind eye to such a great beauty with such deep feelings. Even if he is a pig, being with such a beautiful woman for such a long time. Even if she is skilled in makeup, how can he not see any clues? To think that he is called the king of Hell Chu, who is the smartest in the world. He is simply undeserving of his reputation. I'm so angry. Then, if there is time, I will bring you to the upper three heavens to play with the Chu clan. Do you refuse? Young Ruolan asked tentatively. This matter could not be rushed. Tai Butian was a resolute woman. If one were to act too hastily, it would be detrimental instead. Tai Butian frowned. Then, she smiled elegantly and said, if that's the case, that's true, but there are many matters to attend to. Even if I go, I'm afraid I won't be able to stay for more than a few days. It's good that you're willing to go. Young Ruolan was overjoyed. Be good. Good Yang. Come, here, let me hug you. Young Ruolan clapped her hands and opened them. She was ready to bid farewell to Sunday. The problem of how to address him was really difficult. They were clearly grandfather and grandson, yet they couldn't acknowledge each other. If she were to call herself auntie, how could she say that? Therefore, young Ruolan had no choice but to address herself as I. Little Tai Yang was in Tai Butian's arms. She stretched out her 2 chubby little hands in a squeaky manner. During this period of time, although the child was not sensible, he had already gotten used to young Ruolan's embrace. Young Ruolan carefully carried him over and held his chubby little head. An ordinary child would probably be able to support his neck by himself after 100 days of being born. Cough cough, that's right, right? I'm a little unsure. But Tai Yang was a freak. He was just 1 month old. He could straighten his neck and turn his head to look around by himself. After being affectionate for a while, he reluctantly returned to Tai Butian's arms. Little Tai Yang still stretched out his hands and kicked his legs, wanting to return to young Ruolan's arms. Young Ruolan's heart ached and she almost cried. She turned her head forcefully and said to her husband, let's go. Chu Feiling looked at his grandson in Tai Butian's arms with reluctance. His lips moved and he sighed regretfully. He turned around reluctantly. Nowadays, there were strict rules against newborn children. They would never let other men hug them. And Chu Feiling clearly had a legitimate reason to hug the child. He was the child's grandfather. But his identity hadn't been recognized, so he didn't have the chance to hug him. The couple turned around and left. Behind them, little Tai Yang seemed to have felt something. With a loud cry, he started to cry. Young Ruolan's tears immediately flowed down. Chu Feiling pulled her and the two of them started to move. They simply ran with all their might and disappeared with a whoosh. Tai Butian looked at the two of them until their figures disappeared. She stood there for a long time. She lowered her head and looked at her crying son. She sighed deeply. I wish you, a safe journey and a family reunion soon. Tai Butian said quietly. When she said the words family reunion, her heart suddenly ached and she almost cried. She muttered, "Don't forget my instructions. Don't tell him. Otherwise, I don't know what I should do." She turned around resolutely and returned to the imperial carriage with her son in her arms. They slowly returned to the city. Yong Ruolan and Chu Filing ran for a long time. That tender cry still seemed to echo in their ears. Yong Ruolan was dispirited and spiritless. She looked back 3 times with every step. Tears still glistened in her eyes. "If we find the child, should we tell him?" Yong Ruolan asked. This. Chu Filing pondered. He felt that this matter was very distressing. He had been separated from his son for 18 years. Now that they were about to reunite, there was such a contradictory matter. According to Tai Butian, it was certain that Chu Yang had someone he loved deeply in his heart. Moreover, Chu Yang still didn't know that Tai Butian was a girl. If she told him, it would be tantamount to breaking up his current relationship with his son, forcing him to accept an unbelievable fact. This was simply too cruel for Chu Yang. Tai Butian had probably considered this point and made such a request. But the more this was the case, the more he felt that Tai Butian was rare. The more he felt that he had let her down. Now that this matter was brought up, both husband and wife felt extremely conflicted. "Let's take one step at a time." Chu Filing pondered and said, "This matter, we can only play it by ear." "That's true." Yong Ruolan also relaxed a little. She suddenly thought of something and said excitedly, "It's normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines in the current Double Heavens continent. If he really can't give up, then it's no big deal to marry 2. Even if he has more, so what? On the contrary, it will make our Chu clan more prosperous. It's a good thing to spread our family." Chu Filing rolled his eyes. He said, "It's not as easy as you say." He thought to himself, "My wife has always been extremely angry with men who dare to take concubines. Even if she doesn't know them, she can't wait to beat them up. But now, when it's her son's turn, she's already making arrangements for him to take concubines. People really can't be compared with each other. Even if he can take more, who will be the eldest? Who will be the second wife? There has to be a hierarchy." Chu Filing sighed. "Do you think our son is willing to let the woman he loves be the second wife?" Yang Ruolan blinked and was also a little uncertain. She said, "What do you think? You used to be my sworn brother, so you know him better." Chu Filing's face was full of black lines. The most annoying and shameful thing now was the mention of the word sworn brother. This was a huge joke that he had to bear for life. Yet, he was the one who shamelessly wanted to be sworn brothers with his son. He said gloomily, "Can you not mention this matter? Why, when it comes to your sworn brother, you feel embarrassed?" Yang Ruolan looked at her husband amusedly. "Let's be serious. Then tell me. I'm asking you." "Yes. This, with my understanding of that little one, I'm afraid it's impossible." Chu Filing recalled the time when he was with Chu Yang. He slowly pondered and came to a conclusion. That little one is an affectionate person. Once he's set his mind on someone, even a bull can't pull him back. Yang Ruolan sighed. "Then, is it possible for Tai Butian to be the second wife?" Chu Filing rolled his eyes and sighed. "What do you think?" "I'm afraid it's also impossible." Yang Ruolan was disheartened. No matter what. She's also the number 1 overlord of the lower 3 heavens. And she's the number 5 overlord. How can she be someone's concubine? Let's not talk about this. After all, she gave birth to the eldest grandson of the Chu clan. How can she be the second wife? You still ask when you know. Chu Filing also sighed. This matter is really troublesome. Yong Ruolan rubbed her brows. This was the first time in so many years that she was so concerned about something. She didn't expect this matter to be so difficult to achieve. Let's take it one step at a time. Chu Filing could only comfort her in this way. I'm afraid it's not just these 2. You didn't see that little girl called Wu Qianqian. She's obviously deeply in love with you. She's lovesick. Yang Ruolan frowned sadly. There are 3 of them. Chu Filing sighed repeatedly. Is this guy so popular with girls? Why wasn't I so popular when I was young? Our son is really capable. Young Ruolan suddenly became happy and said happily, nothing much has happened yet, and there are already 3 girls who are in love with each other, and none of them are ordinary people. They're all peerless beauties. They're all outstanding beauties. Look at the entire heavens, including the male overlords of the major clans. None of them are as capable as my son. Chu Filing was dumbfounded. This is clearly a difficult matter. How can it be used to show off? Furthermore, you were just sighing and frowning. In the blink of an eye, you're so excited and proud. Chu Filing couldn't help but sigh. Women are really hard to understand. I've been with my wife for 20 years, but I still don't understand her completely. This kind of strange thinking ability really makes one not know whether to laugh or cry. But it's also very confusing. Let's go, let's go. Let's hurry to the 3 heavens. Won't we know everything once we find that little guy and sound him out? One day later, Yong Ruolan and Chu Filing appeared at the 3 heavens restaurant. After asking around, the couple was instantly stunned. What? Several major clans are having a battle at the Lake of Despair? It's already started. King of Hell Chu is actually the main figure. Yong Ruolan's face turned as white as snow. The She clan of the upper 3 heavens is also participating in this battle. And they're standing against King of Hell Chu and the others. Chu Filing felt as if someone had hit his head with a stick. Without thinking, the couple threw down a gold ingot, bought some food and drinks, and rushed over without stopping. Quick, 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 quick. Chapter 683. Yong Ruolan's heart was burning with anxiety. Chu Filing's heart was also burning with anxiety. Just as they were about to have a family reunion, something like this actually happened at this juncture. In such a large-scale battle, human lives were like child's play. It was extremely dangerous. Even a monarch-level expert or an emperor-level expert would fall in such a decisive battle. How could King of Hell Chu be so rash as to get involved in such a big storm? How could the She clan of the upper 3 heavens be a match for the clans of the upper 3 heavens? Wasn't he courting death? Who lured our son into this place? Thank you for your support. The couple was angry and anxious. They wished they had wings so that they could rush over and fight alongside their son or drag him out. Of course, they didn't know that this battle was started by their son. He started it, planned it, and even wanted to end it. Speaking of abduction, it was their son who abducted others. In short, Eunuch Chu was the real culprit. But in a parent's heart, their son was naturally honest, good-natured, adorable, obedient, and well-behaved, especially in Yong Ruolan's heart. Her son wasn't much older than her grandson. What could such a young and tender child do? What could he do? If he didn't get involved in such a big matter, what else could it be? Thus, she swore to save her son. After the couple rushed for 300 miles, they remembered that they needed to buy 2 horses. Then, he bought a horse at a high price. He spurred the horse and rushed towards the Lake of Despair as fast as lightning. Although they were anxious, they were tens of thousands of miles away from the Lake of Despair. How could they reach it in a few days? Even if the couple rushed as fast as they could without stopping, they would still need at least 5 days to reach the Lake of Despair. 5 days. For a battle of life and death, this was a very long time. Yong Ruolan rushed the horses as she blamed herself. If she had left with her master and Wu Qian, it would have been great. They would have made it in time. However, she couldn't bear to part with her grandson and insisted on attending his 1-month-old celebration. Thus, she was delayed for a few days. She didn't expect such a big thing to happen in these few days. The mountain. He stood up straight and soared into the cloud. This was the heavenly sword peak. It had always been a place of life and death in decisive battles. According to the legends, this mountain was 10,000 zhong tall. However, after the battle between Chen Feng and Liu Yun, the upper half of the mountain had disappeared without a trace. At a height of 50,000 zhong, it had turned into a huge plain. It was as smooth as a mirror. As far as the eye could see, there were no undulations at all. Furthermore, for tens of thousands of years, Not even a single blade of grass grew. The entire mountain had condensed into a single entity, resembling a huge piece of metal. In the center of this plain, on the ground that even divine weapons couldn't poke a small hole, there was a huge lake. It was at least 1,000 feet wide, and the lake water was like a mirror, with green smoke rising in spirals. If there was an island in the center of the lake, it would be the island of life and death. It was said that this lake was created when Supremacy Chen Feng and Supremacy Flowing Cloud were at the peak of their battle. Supremacy Flowing Cloud punched a huge hole in the lake and connected it to the hot spring underground, forming a vast lake. Moreover, the entire lake was a hot spring. It was steaming hot. This place was already 50,000 zhong tall. Snow was falling from all directions, and the ground was freezing cold. However, there was a hot spring lake in the middle. It was a marvelous sight. Of course, there was still no sign of life on the lake. There wasn't even a single blade of grass. As for whether there was water, no one knew. When the two supremacy martial artists fought here, their godly strength crushed the entire mountain. The flowers, plants, and trees were all turned into dust together with their root. Furthermore, this place was too high. Even if there was a storm, it wouldn't be able to reach here. For tens of thousands of years, this place was recognized as a land of death. On both sides of the lake, there was a stone tablet that was 1,000 zhong tall. On one side, there were words written in flamboyant calligraphy, "Morning wind rises in the universe." On the other side, there were words written in majestic calligraphy, "Clouds beyond the heavens." The two stone tablets were of the same height. They faced each other from afar, as if the two supremacy martial artists were still facing each other after tens of thousands of years. They were silent and majestic. "This is the lake of despair." Chu Yang looked at the two stone tablets and whispered. Even with Chu Yang's arrogance, he couldn't help but feel a sense of reverence when faced with the miracles left behind by the two legendary supremacy martial artists. "It's really a good place." Jiu Du Xing sighed from the bottom of his heart. "As a swordsman, if I could fight to the death in such a place under the witness of two supremacy martial artists, how wonderful would that be?" Everyone felt the same way. Even the usually cynical Ji Mo and Luo Ku Di nodded their heads repeatedly. They had the same feeling. These two stone tablets were the two supremacy martial artists. They were looking at them coldly, disdainfully, and majestically with impartiality. From the bottom of their hearts, they couldn't even think of blasphemy. It's also because of this that this place became the place for the final battle of the three heavens. Mo Tianji exhaled a breath of cold air and said indifferently, "For tens of thousands of years, those who were qualified to die here were the heavens. All of them were experts who never appeared in the world. Furthermore, as long as they died here, their corpses would be thrown into the lake. For tens of thousands of years, who knows how many heroes have been buried at the bottom of the lake of death. Today, at least 1,000 corpses of experts will be thrown into the lake of death again." Mo Tianji said deeply, "I hope that you and I can continue walking down this path." Everyone was silent. If they continued walking down this path, they would be the victors. According to the rules of the final battle of the Lake of Death, all the losers would stay here. Everyone could go up the mountain, but only the victors could go down the mountain. "Us brothers will definitely continue walking down this path." Dong Wu Shong's eyes flashed with fervor as he said, "However, even if we die, it's an honor to be buried here." More than 1,000 people stood here in absolute silence. Even the few martial monarchs held their breaths and looked at the two stone tablets with respect in their eyes. The supreme elder of the Ao clan, Ao Wu Yang, whose face was full of wrinkles, sighed softly. He said somewhat despondently, "Back then, my third granduncle fought a decisive battle here. At that time, he was already a second-grade martial monarch, but he was defeated and died. His corpse is in this lake. He can't go home." After he finished speaking, everyone in the Ao clan bowed deeply towards the lake. Tan Tan stepped out from the crowd and looked at the lake. He looked at the two stone tablets and suddenly had a strange feeling. He couldn't help but slowly walk forward step by step. Everyone was deeply moved and looked at the memorial ceremony of the Ao clan. They didn't notice. When Chu Yang noticed, Tan Tan had already walked dozens of feet away. Don't go near the front of the stone tablet, Chu Yang shouted. Before he finished speaking, Tan Tan had already turned around and looked at the stone tablet of supreme martial artist Chen Feng. Suddenly, Tan Tan's body trembled and his long hair fluttered. Then, with a boom, Tan Tan's body flew back like an arrow from a bow. He fell solidly on the steel-like ground and bounced twice like a toad. He couldn't get up for a while. A terrifying pressure suddenly arose spontaneously. It was as if a demon god had appeared in the sky and was coldly looking at everyone on the ground. That kind of vicissitudes of life made everyone unable to breathe. After this terrifying pressure circled around for a while, it slowly disappeared. Everyone felt that they could move again. They couldn't help but be aghast. Xie Dan Feng hurriedly rushed out and helped him up. Tan Tan's face was full of horror and his eyebrows twitched. He said in shock, "Fuck. These two big stones can hit people. Fuck." Everyone's face darkened. It turned out that Tan Tan had just looked at the word wind in the word morning wind when an extremely powerful coercion had suddenly rushed out from this word. It had sealed the meridians of Tan Tan's entire body, and had ruthlessly thrown him out. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. This is the power that supreme martial artist Chen Feng imbued into the stone tablet tens of thousands of years ago. The two supreme martial artists were evenly matched, so they used all their cultivation to create a stone tablet to confront each other across the lake. When one of them could defeat the other, it would be the winner. But after tens of thousands of years, the two stone tablets still stand tall. Even now, Chuan won't allow anyone to touch them. Tan Tan, you're lucky that you're far away this time. You were only swept by the pressure. If you walked to the center of the lake, you'd be in big trouble. Everyone looked at Tan Tan and couldn't help but laugh. Boss, how do you know about this? Ji Mo was very surprised. Chu Yang clearly wasn't from the Three Heavens. How did he know about this? Even he, a native of the Three Heavens, didn't know as much as him. How would I know? Chu Yang smiled bitterly. He thought to himself, when I was drawn here by the Calamity Sword, I also experienced it once. How could I not know? And the last time I experienced it, it was much worse than Tan Tan's. My legs were almost broken, and my 7 apertures were bleeding. But the last time I saw supreme martial artist Liu Yun's cloud, it was different from Tan Tan's. And at that time, his cultivation was much lower than Tan Tan's. Even a saint-level expert wouldn't be able to withstand this kind of pressure. Ao Wu Yang took a deep breath. Even a supreme martial artist wouldn't be able to withstand it. Chu Yang said seriously, because these two auras won't allow anyone to touch them. If someone was actually able to withstand one of them, then the other would immediately join in and attack together. When the auras of two supreme martial artists merge together, which supreme martial artist can withstand it? Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Actually, I feel that these two supreme martial artists are very strange. Ji Mo said without thinking. There are so many legends about their duels, but the two of them have never been injured. Moreover, this duel doesn't seem to have happened once or twice. It seems to have happened dozens of times. Chuan, it seems that these two people are using fighting as a pastime. Chu Yang snorted and said, that's nonsense. When you reach that level of cultivation, you'll know that having someone to fight with you is the happiest thing in the world. Ji Mo smiled mischievously and said, I'm not worried. Even if I reach that level, there won't be just one person to fight with me. There will be many, and you'll still be a masochist. Luo Kudi said coldly. He spared no effort to attack Ji Mo. Everyone was amused. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.